What?
Explain that.
Sure. I think it was 2008 is when most of those actions were finalized. It may have been 2007. The city dissolved 3 subsidiary districts. There was a sanitary district that had a fund balance because the sanitary district's revenues were, or their expenditures were paid entirely out of user fees. It had a fund balance of probably close to $20 million. I don't recall that number off the top of my head. But between the fire and the Park and Rec district, their total cost to the general fund for the 30 or so years that they had existed as a subsidiary district was, I remember this number, I believe it was $148 million in the hole between both fire and the Park and Rec district. How that sorted out between the two, I don't know. So historically, the city had provided its own sales tax at that time, because it didn't receive any property tax, to provide a higher level of service than those districts would have otherwise been able to provide on their own. I know in relatively recent years, as we struggled a little bit, we had to cut back some of those parks programs, and effectively that would have been reflected had we continued to maintain those districts as separate entities. It would have shown up, much as golf course does, as a transfer in from the general fund.
Since there was a subsidy and it wasn't shown as a debt, I don't believe. Once that was dissolved, there is no debt now of the Rec and Park District to the city's general fund. Is that correct?
That is correct. There was a time, I don't know when that debt was effectively written off. I think at some point a determination was made by the finance director at the time, I'm sure with approval of the council, that there was no real purpose in continuing to carry that debt because the park district was never going to get to a point that it would have additional revenues with which to repay the debt. So effectively, I believe it was written off at some point, and simply it became what's called a subvention, funds that went from the general fund to the Rec and Park Fund.
Same thing for sanitary?
Same thing for fire, but not for sanitary. Sanitary actually had, it was close to $20 million. I don't remember because it's been 4 or 5 years ago now. And a certain portion of that, a couple $1 million, was kept as capital reserves as required by the LAFCO action. The remaining property tax dollars, it was roughly $15 million, was actually transferred to the general fund at that point, also based on the LAFCO action. That's a subject that was part of the grand jury report, that they disagreed with the way that we handled that, in spite of the fact that I showed them repeatedly the LAFCO resolution that required us to transfer those property taxes to the general fund. In fact, those property taxes are now general fund property taxes on a go-forward basis.
All right. So, but there's no debt on the books?
There is no debt on the books. Occasionally in development impact fees, there's debt that goes back and forth, depending on projects. And then additionally in golf, there is debt on the books in the golf course fund that ultimately we may have to write off. We're still trying to give Billy Casper a couple more years to get the golf course profitable. If it gets to a profitable standpoint, then we would take a look and see just how profitable it is or can be, and before we make a determination as to whether or not those are truly uncollectible or not.
Excuse me for a second. The city clerk is reminding me that it's 5 o'clock. We have a scheduled council meeting that begins at 5 o'clock. I am going to formally call that meeting to order. I will ask that the city clerk have roll call. After that roll call, we are going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back and continue with the budget. So you don't need to leave. We're going to get through as much of this budget as we can, even though it's going to delay the regular council meeting. What we primarily have is an executive session, and so we expect that to be delayed probably a half hour or so. Roll call, please.
Here.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Here.
Councilmember Valles?
Just took a restroom break. She
Got it in front of me, so
Yep.
she's here.
Mayor Pro Tem McEachron?
Here.
Mayor Cox?
Here.
Mayor Cox, I would just recommend you quickly open for public comment for the 5 o'clock, and then
I will do that just as soon as we finish. If there are any more questions of Mr. Gunter, are there any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
Since we have called this other meeting to order, we now have a public comment period. If there's anyone that would like to address the council at this time, I have no cards. I see no one. I am going to declare a 5-minute break. We will come back and continue with the budget, and Mr. Bill Webb will give his presentation as soon as we get back.
kept the revenues constant with last year, just to be conservative, at 2.2 million, and expenditures are under that at 2 million. Within that $2 million for expenditures, we were able to add 2 code enforcement officers and 1 building inspector. The building inspector is going to be funded 100% out of grant funding, and we didn't move grants around. That's additional funding appropriated for next year that we didn't have. The 2 code enforcement officers will each be 30% funded out of grant funding. So whereas the cost of all 3 employees out of the general fund will be approximately $100,000 to $120,000. There's an additional $150,000 in grant funding that we would, in effect, lose if we didn't have the employees there to do the additional work. So we're fortunate that the code enforcement officers will be able to take at least 70% to more of their time to assist with code enforcement efforts in the city, and the building inspector will coordinate the activities that are 100% funded and are already necessary in some of the CDBG areas. And with that, those are the only changes at this time to the development department budget.
From your experience in permits and projected buildings and so forth, do you have a projection on what you think we're facing in 2013? Development, a new development?
Yes, housing is slowly increasing at a steady pace, and we still lead the high desert in single-family dwellings. However, as we've discussed in the past, we had an overabundance of those, and although housing initially brings in more revenue to the development department and to the city, the cost of services such as police, fire, roads, infrastructure, parks, etc., outweigh the benefit of the initial permits. What we have seen over the last couple of years is actually very positive for the city, and that is commercial retail growth. And all the development that you've seen with the shopping centers and bringing major retailers back to the city of Victorville, to the basically the core of the high desert, is going to contribute to the budget and the revenue for years to come. So rather than housing, which looks like more on paper at first, but cost more over the years, retail comes in and there's not as much revenue initially, but like I said, the sales tax will continue to increase over years. So I would say that the development we've seen in the last few years is actually the healthiest I've seen as far as growth in the city, probably in my 10 years here. What we saw a few years ago, that was not a healthy pace, and it was upside down regarding, jobs, housing. Now we're actually moving in a healthy pace, so I'm really positive about that. As far as the actual amounts, yes, as I stated, there's about 2 million. We're up around 2 million in permits and entitlements, business license a year right now, which is much better than we were doing a couple of years ago.
Any questions from the council members?
Thanks.
Bill, thank you.
Now our division chief, we call him our fire chief, Don Trapp. Don had actually requested, or there is a need for a new fire truck, and it's something that we aren't able to fit into the budget at this time, something we'd like to discuss with the council maybe in the fall or maybe for next year, finding a way to replace a fire truck. The Air District is interested in helping us out with that as far as replacing an older truck that is a pollutant, overall pollutant, with a newer truck with a newer engine technology. So that's something that I know is at the top of Don's list. And Don, if you could go through any changes to the fire.
I might have brought that up a time or two.
Well, a few times, maybe once a week or so.
But thank you very much, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to, as a contractor, to come up here and talk about our budget and how it fits in with the city. And I wanted to start just a little bit about kind of who we are and what services we are providing and what you're getting with the budget. There's a quick little short video. This was put together by one of your engineers that works at 311 here. He's actually started a project of developing some training videos for us. He's using helmet cams, GoPro type cameras to create videos, to create live action training. And this was kind of a little practice run for him at doing some editing and stuff. Some of his call numbers here are ways off, but it shows you a little bit about who we are and what services we're providing. These are all incidents from Victorville area in about the last 5 or 6 months. This is ventilating the roof of a single-family residential structure fire.
I use that sophisticated fire tool in my yard, actually, to cut weeds.
Yes. Wasn't my exact choice of music, but our mission statement for County Fire would be a community-based all-risk services organization dedicated to health and well-being citizens of San Bernardino County, balance of regionalized service delivery, accountability at the local community, and supported by centralized management and service. That is our mission statement. What are some of the regionalized services that we provide? It includes hazardous materials, hand crew, dozer, helicopter, urban search and rescue. These are all very expensive tools, very expensive to staff and maintain, that we can spread the cost out over large areas and make it cost effective for you. These are some of our local stuff. This is our hazardous materials unit for the high desert. It's currently stationed in Adelanto. Our high desert heavy rescue unit is in Hesperia, but these are county units that are used for the entire area. In fact, with this heavy rescue, we have another one in Fontana, one in Grand Terrace, one in Lake Arrowhead, and a lighter duty one in Yucca Valley. Combined, we make up California Task Force 6, which is a complete task force that could be sent anywhere in the world virtually to do heavy rescue after an earthquake or other type of significant damage. This is our hand crew in front of our helicopter that we partner with the sheriff with. We're just in the final stages of finalizing the agreement and doing some repairs to it, and we'll be in service shortly. What other support services do we offer? It's the management overhead, including arson investigation, shop, warehouse, reserve equipment depth, cover personnel, our training division. We also have in San Bernardino an ARF, the Aircraft Rescue and Firefighter Training Facility. It's one of only 3 in the western United States, one in Texas and one in Colorado. And then we're able to do our certifications for fire classes, EMS classes, our self-contained breathing apparatus require annual fit testing. We can do all those in-house. Talk a little bit about the staffing for the city of Victorville. Initially, when we first started contracting with us, you had a standalone division. I think the city was a little nervous about how good we would serve and how we would do for you. So you had your own division chief, your own set of battalion chiefs that were completely just for the city. Since that time, we've branched out the division, and in doing that, you're now sharing the cost with the rest of the area. So the division now includes the city of Victorville and then virtually all of the North Desert, going from here to State Line to Trona and out that way. Using that, we split the cost for the division chief and the battalion chiefs based on the number of full-time personnel. So within the division, 54.47% of the personnel are within the city of Victorville contract. So you're paying 54.47% of the division chief, and of the 3 battalion chiefs that cause your 24-hour-a-day coverage. Suppression staffing, this does include SCLA also, with 18 captains, 18 engineers, 15 firefighter medics, 3 firefighters, and 3 limited-term firefighters for 61 suppression. For support and suppression staffing, you have a hazmat specialist 4 that runs the city's Coupa. The city of Victorville is the only city in the county that still maintains their own Coupa. Fire prevention supervisor, fire prevention specialist, 2 prevention officers. The staff analyst is in my office, so you pay 54% of that position. You have 1 office assistant here at City Hall in fire prevention that you pay for, and then 54% of 1 that's in my office. You also have household hazardous waste environmental technicians. They are just PSE's positions. There's 2 of those. Some quick stats for 2012. There were 16,270 incidents. Now, a lot of incidents require multiple responses. There are actually 20,277 responses, increasing 4 to 8% a year. Our average response time for 2012 was 6 minutes, 55 seconds. It's actually up about 8-9 seconds as we're seeing just call volume increase to the point that we're getting more and more difficult to reduce that response time. Prevention, 1,368 business inspections, fire system tests, the Coupa inspections, household hazardous waste. They're open 2 days a week for a couple hours each day. They collected 248,000 pounds of household-generated hazardous waste. And our mechanics spent more than 3,000 hours on equipment. This is call volume since 2009, up 33.8% from 12,001 to 16,270. This is our budget over that same time frame. In 2009, with $13.66 million, that was when you were paying for the entire division chief and the entire 3 battalion chiefs that you had. In 2010 is when we split the division, and you got the reductions of paying less for the division chief and the battalion chiefs. In 2011, the firefighters took a 7% pay cut. That kept the budget there at 12.9. We did also a lot of work at trying to cut down expenses, equipment replacement, things like that to keep that budget under control the best we could. In 12-13, we did see a jump to 13.7 million, mostly driven by retirement costs. We also saw a very large increase in fuel costs, vehicle insurance, and some of those other costs there. Our proposed 12-13 budget is 13.814 million. An increase of 79,000, and about 14,000 of that is SCLA, with 65,000 to the city. Now, this is after we did have some budget adjustments from what was initially proposed for 12-13 to where we ended up. So that 13.7 is our actual for 12-13, and the 13.8 is our proposed. So we're up 1.1% over that same time frame that call volumes increased by 33. Give a quick rundown of the stations. You have Station 311, our headquarters is at the fairgrounds right across the freeway. We're running a medic truck and a medic engine. In 2012, they had 7,642 responses. About 25, 30 years ago, the standard in the fire service used to be if a unit ran more than about 1,500 calls a year, that it was time to consider to add an additional unit. Since that time, with the high volume of medical aids that have increased, that number now is more considered about 3,000 or over 3,000. So you can see our 2 units at 311, 7,642 responses. Station 312, 4,082. Station 313, 4,531. And Station 314, 3,241 calls. They're all single-engine stations, all paramedic. Station 315, interesting, a little bit to catch up. That was started construction before the downturn of the economy. Once it was finished, the city was unable to afford to staff it. We entered into a cooperative agreement somewhat. The county has placed a brush patrol unit, which is basically a big pickup truck with a small pump and first aid equipment, extrication gear on it. And we are sharing the cost with 2 limited-term firefighters. These are guys that are basically right out of the academy. They have short term, 3 years, that they can maximum work in that position. It's basically a training ground. They are not paramedic, so we always run them, usually with Station 313. But at this time, the city is paying for one of the LTs and the station costs, and the county is paying for one of the LTs and owns the equipment. And with that, we use it on both city and county missions. In 2012, they had 1,625 responses. This is our current budget broken down compared to 12-13 to 13-14. For suppression, you see we're up about just shy of 300,000. Mostly retirement increase and also some increase for the positions that you have. We have a lot of the higher step people that like to work in Victorville. They like the experience here, and so we have some higher step people. So we saw a little bit of increase there. The chief officers you see are down almost 300,000, mostly because I stated this year it was a 54% split. Last year that split was based on a methodology of call volume instead of full-time personnel. So last year that was a 70% split. So the reduction in that is why you see the reduction in chief officers. Fire prevention, the slight decrease is only because the admin part of that was moved into contract management. The cost is basically the same. That also goes for the hazmat and Coupa. Household hazardous waste, you see a slight increase. We're expecting a little less in the waste oil reimbursement from the state, but other than that, it's basically the same. Operating expenses are up a little bit, and I'll go over exactly what is in operating expenses. You see contract management is actually down significant. Again, we use full-time employee numbers to split out our contract management fees. And even though this year we are looking at the city of Adelanto is closing a station, the county is adding a piece of equipment in Baldy Mesa area. We're adding an engineer position in the city of Grand Terrace. And the Crest Forest Fire Protection District has just voted to join County Fire. Those additional employees help split out our admin and contract management fees. You see the reduction there. And again, in the total contract, we're up about $79,000. The operating expenses include vehicle services, parts and labor, Confire, which is our dispatch center, dispatchers, radios, radio systems, computers, computer networking, software, data processing. CalCap, and for us, since we're a special district, our CalCap only includes auditor controller services from the county to pay our bills, county payroll, and that's about it. It's about $35,000. Our SCBA technician certification, station expenses, fuel, utilities, maintenance, supplies, tools, and insurance. Our contract management fees includes the administration. And for an idea, out of our department, for full-time employees, the city of Victorville is about 9%. So you're paying 9% of our admin fees of the fire chief. Human resources, our training center, training officers for both fire and EMS, mandatory training classes, EMS certifications and continuing education, warehouse services, and our division overhead and division services and supplies. That includes your staff analyst, services and supplies and fuel for the battalion chiefs and division chief, and office expenses there. Our current needs, and we happen to mention it, is fire engine replacement. Under our normal plans, life expectancy, we look at for a fire engine to run 10 years frontline service and an additional 10 years as a reserve. 2 of your 4 frontline engines are 2002s. Means they were due to be replaced in 2012. Part of the problem is there's not a fire engine car lot that you can go to and say, I want that one, and drive it home. They're all custom built per order, and about a 12-month delivery time. And then about another 2 to 3 months for us to outfit it, test it, and put it in service. So from the day you say, yes, we're ready to afford to buy a new fire engine, it's about 12 to 14 months before it's here running calls. And then after these two, the other two frontline engines in the ladder truck, it's 2006. And again, with the extremely high call volume, we're already pushing the life expectancy of these units. Our brush engines, which are set up, they're smaller, lighter, set to go off-road. We usually look at about a 15-year lifespan for those. The three in the city are 1990, 1995, and 1996, so they've all exceeded that limit. For battalion chief vehicles, when you started contracting with us, you had your three owned vehicles in the first year of the contract when you had the three. Two of them were 2000s, and they've both pretty much disintegrated this year. The county purchased one new one and put one that we had about a 2009 in service. The last one that the city owns is a 2006, and we usually look for about a 7-year lifespan for that. The Coupa vehicle for the hazmat response vehicle, it died a couple months ago. It's about a $140,000 vehicle to replace. Currently, the county is loaning a hazmat vehicle to you, but long-term wise, we'll have to look at some way to replace that. Also for county fire, we're on an 8-year cycle to replace the cardiac monitors for the paramedics, and that will become due in fiscal 14-15. And we're looking at a little over $200,000 probably cost in that program.
Chief, what does Coupa stand for?
Certified Unified Program Participant,
Administration, I think.
something like that. It's
Underground tanks and
It's hazardous materials producers and handlers inspection program. Inspections and monitoring for hazardous materials handlers and generators in your community. It includes underground storage and stuff like that.
in Victorville, it's been known as Greg Kuhn for the last decade or two.
Yes. As Mr. Robertson stated, we did County Fire on behalf of the city, applied for an AQMD grant from the Mojave AQMD grant. We were awarded $154,000 in 2012-13. We did have to forfeit that. The city could not finish the purchase of a fire engine in time. We were able to carry the application over to fiscal 13-14, and we should get the dollar amount in a couple of months as soon as they work through the process. And just for information, a new fire engine is approximately $500,000 with an additional setup of about $150,000. So they're certainly a huge investment. The only good news we did talk about is we could, there's such a long delivery time as you could budget the engine in one fiscal year and the setup in the next, because it does take so long to be delivered. Possible future service improvements, we definitely have to look long-term at upgrading Station 315 to have a complete fire engine and crew there and provide paramedic service out of that. From County Fire's perspective, we are a certified medical priority dispatching center, one of only 190 in the country that's actually certified to prioritize medical calls when they come in. One of the questions you see all the time is on a medical aid is, why are we sending a fire engine and an ambulance to someone with toe pain or has had a really non-emergency problem? Working towards that, our dispatch center, when you call, they actually go through a whole series of questions with you and categorize the medical aid. And we're looking in the future. In fact, we're doing it in Fontana now, and we're looking at starting and doing it in Hesperia with their ambulances, where we will alter the dispatch based on the information that's generated. If the call does not require the complete response of 5 people, we can dial that back and use alternate vehicles or alternate response models. Also, huge changes coming in EMS with healthcare reform and also pressures from the state. We're looking at the ability in the future of having community paramedicine programs, alternate destinations for ambulances. Currently, if you call 911 and the ambulance comes out, you can only be transported to an acute care emergency room. And we're looking at ways to change that in the future. There's also the current county ambulance response areas and models up for review. We're heavily involved with that, and we're looking at possibly expanding where we offer at least the advantage of ambulance transport, and Victorville is definitely on the list of that as a revenue source. Also in healthcare reform or Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, there's provisions in there that the first responder service that we're currently providing for free could be reimbursed. So we're definitely looking at that as a revenue stream. Also, we're heavily involved. Our fire chief, Mark Hartwig, is on the state commission, EMS commission. He's also heavily involved in where we're going in the future, but I think we're going to see significant changes in EMS in the next 5 years or so. And finally, close, just our goal is continue to be a partner with the city, develop goals and plans to improve the lives and safety of the people of Victorville. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor, before there's questions, I do want to mention two things. One, I want to commend Chief Trapp. A few years ago, when we were going through our deepest budget struggles, the chief at that time cut some administrative costs and then started sharing the costs with the city, county, and the city, and it was about 70-30 split. That was sort of just an estimate of call volume or employee volume, or a bit of a wild-ass guess. I suppose, and you can see by the number that Chief Trapp has come up with, the 54.47% is an absolute direct cost to us. In stark contrast to the CalCap, the documents that Chief Trapp has shared with me shows not just the firefighters, but actually what each firefighter is paid. Doesn't give me their name necessarily, but rather than using just some blanket dollar amount per firefighter, if we've got somebody who's a first step, we're charged for a first step firefighter. And all of that is handled through some new financial software I know that you implemented last year, or the county fire did. And it's very appreciative. It's a lot easier to talk to the council about any potential increases when I can see them on paper, we can show them to you on paper very clearly. The other question that I had for you, Chief Trapp, one question that comes up in regard to Station 315 is, are the people in that area receiving a lesser level of service? I know in the past, Station 313 was essentially the first call, especially to a serious medical aid. Can you talk about the service level in and around the 315 area and how that service is provided compared to the rest of the city?
It's certainly better than having the station vacant, which was what we were faced at. So we do have 2 EMTs. They are new firefighters. They're new. They do work under the direction of the captain at 313. They do have a mini fire engine, we kind of call it in the brush patrol. But they do have first aid gear. They are EMTs. They're trained CPR. They do have a small pump and water capability for small fires they can make an initial attack on. So it certainly is better capability than having the station vacant. It is not paramedics. It is not a complete fire engine to make an initial attack on a larger fire. So it is a step down if you're next to one of the other stations, but it's far better than having the station vacant.
Right. 313 still responds in an area if there's a paramedic call, correct?
Yes, we still send 313 with Brush Patrol 315 no matter what it goes on initially, until we're sure that they can handle it.
Yeah, and as I recall from past budget presentations or past presentations from past fire chiefs, the response time from 313 is comparable in the 315 area as it is in other areas of the city. Is that still true today?
It cannot cover all of 315's areas in what we would, in our 5-minute map. We do a 5 to 6-minute map, okay. And there is parts of 315's areas that it cannot get to within that time frame, more in the 8 to 11-minute area.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from members of the council? Mr. Kennedy.
Chief, this is a question coming from complete ignorance. I know nothing about fighting fires, although I lived through the one in 1980 down in DeVore. My wife and I went to dinner at Red Lobster a week ago, 10 days ago, and as we rolled in, there was a EMT vehicle, and behind that was a fire truck, and another one was coming in at the time we walked in. And after about 20 minutes, they took a lady out on a gurney. And I was paying attention because, I'm interested in what you do. Why would that kind of a call require that kind of a response? Is there code or regulation, or how does that work?
Currently, the ambulance service is provided by AMR, which is a for-profit private company.
So that was not a fire ambulance?
No, and unless you were in Hesperia, Hesperia Fire does have their own ambulances. County Fire, we do operate some of our own ambulances in Pinion Hills, Phelan, Wrightwood, Lucerne Valley, and other areas of the county. Basically, areas that aren't profitable for a private company. We do provide the service. Now, the private company, we can't count on their response times. We get calls lots of times that they're coming from San Bernardino to a call in Victorville. So we send our fire engine that we keep within its district to be there first. They're paramedics, and their job is to get there first and to stabilize the patient, do all the care they can. We also go with enough people to take care of the situation no matter what it may be. Now, like I stated, we are getting into doing EMD dispatching, where the dispatchers will classify those calls, and perhaps in the future we will alter the response based on those answers. But currently here in Victorville, we don't have an alternate vehicle. What they did in Fontana is Fontana used to have 4 firefighters on all their fire engines. This January, they went to 3 firefighters on their engines and took the extra guys and staffed 3 squads. And they're sending the squads by themselves to the low-ranked medical aids to keep their fire engines within their first districts ready to take care of larger emergencies. So that's something in the future that we can look at to definitely save some of the wear and tear on the expensive fire engines and cut down some of those response times and be ready for the bigger emergency when it comes.
Other questions?
But a large medical aid could easily take 6, 7 people to treat someone and carry them out and drive them.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Traditionally, if an ambulance responds and transports someone to a medical facility, they either get paid directly by those who they provided the service to or by insurance.
Yes.
When the fire department responds, and maybe does the same thing except for the transportation, do they bill and receive money from insurance?
Currently, it is not a billable service. That's one thing that is being changed in healthcare reform and some state legislation to make it a billable service. Currently, first response EMS is not a billable service. Only the ambulance transport is.
If you have transportation in the fire department and emergency trained EMTs, wouldn't that be in direct competition with the ambulance?
Yes, and that's one thing that the county is working through as it reworks the EMS system here. Currently, they're giving exclusive operating areas to private companies, which means they have no competition. The county does set a ceiling on the rate that they can charge, but there is no competition for them. From our point of view, you give a private company, a city of Victorville, with a number of transports, there's probably several $1 million in profit on the table. And that we're providing the quick service, we're providing the initial response, we're providing the initial stabilization. If it's a really critical patient, our paramedic goes with them to the hospital, and we're getting nothing in return.
Does that require change of policy or law from the supervisors or from the state legislature?
It's from the state and from federal reimbursement. It has to be a billable code for the first response to be reimbursable from insurance, and that is in progress. Those discussions are going on. There's also discussions going on the county about, the county does have the legal responsibility for ambulance transport within the county.
Yes, they do.
Now, the county has discharged that and let it be given to the private companies. There is talk now of the county taking some of that back and looking at that, and at least looking at cost sharing or profit sharing or pass-throughs or some way to help offset the cost that you're incurring from providing that initial response service.
Yes. Years ago, before the county took on that responsibility, in joint agreement with two other counties, I believe, at least one of the counties, but I think it was two. The City of Victorville issued the franchise for ambulance company. It provided quite a bit of money, and we allocated that directly to the fire department. Does the county board allocate to the fire department those franchise fees that are paid by the ambulance company now that they choose the provider? Or do you know?
I do not know for sure. I know in most
Question we
there's,
can ask.
yeah. Most of those agreements got thrown out, if you should say, when one of the laws changed called 201. And if you weren't providing that ambulance transport service prior to that date, you could not regulate it anymore. That regulation fell to the county. And most of those agreements were thrown out when that happened.
And and the last question, you say that discussions are underway, but my understanding is with Obamacare and mandatory coverage, primary responders can bill and get paid, and more fire departments are talking about becoming primary coverage, being the first provider. First
Yeah, we're
responders,
looking at
first
those
responders.
options. We're also looking at, there's going to be options for community paramedic services that could be billed and charged for. One part of Obamacare is the 3N30 clause, where if someone's admitted to a hospital for one of 3 diagnoses and they get released, if they go back to the hospital within 30 days, the hospital's not paid, not for the initial admin or the follow-up. So we're looking at kind of partnering with them to say, well, we'll go out and we'll see that person in 4 days after they're discharged and make sure they're doing well, that they've got their meds filled, that they're following up. And again, be able to bill for that service to help offset some of our costs. So we're looking at all those options for the future. I think EMS is going to significantly change in the next 5 years.
Thank you very much, Chief. Are there any other questions? I don't believe so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. City Manager, does that conclude this part of our budget study session?
It does. I would like to make one comment that anytime there's changes on the council, we take our best guess at how much information or how little information you may want. We will obviously learn from your questions today and make sure that next time we have a budget presentation, we'll be more responsive, hopefully up front, with what we think this council would like to see.
Page numbers.
Page numbers, yeah, that aren't cut off.
Photocopying for me.
We did call the council meeting together to order at 5 o'clock. We kind of extended that so we could get through the budget process. We've ended the budget process. We go back into our regular meeting. We also, when we called that to order, asked if anyone wanted to speak. We did not have anyone. We had roll call at that time. And at this point in time, then, we have to ask, are there items for executive session? Any added items, Madam City Clerk or Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor Cox. There are 2 scheduled closed session items on the agenda. They are both existing litigation. The name of the litigation is set forth on the agenda. They are pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. One is for the City Council, one is for the Airport Authority. In addition, however, I am requesting that you add 3 additional closed session items as urgency items. These all pertain to existing litigation pursuant to paragraph 1 of subdivision D of section 54956.9 of the Government Code. They all pertain to litigation initiated with respect to medical marijuana dispensaries. The names of the cases are City of Victorville versus Top Shelf Wellness Center, San Bernardino County, Superior Court case number CIVDS 1306076. The second one is City of Victorville versus Tetrahydrocannabinol, case number CIVDS 1306075. And the third one is City of Victorville versus FAY Care, Inc., Superior Court case number CIVDS 1306341. In order to add those items, you must make a finding that the items arose after the posting of the agenda and that there's immediate need to take action. With respect to these items, we received a call from the attorneys for these dispensaries, basically seeking some settlement discussion terms, and there is a hearing scheduled tomorrow morning, so I need some direction before tomorrow morning's hearing as to how you would like to proceed. So if you would make a motion to add those based on those findings, and then to the extent that any reportable action on any of these items, we would report it at the close
Okay.
of the closed session.
Chair is open for motion.
Make the motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. They will be added to we now have 3 items added to the executive session agenda. We will now adjourn to executive session. Call the regular scheduled meeting of the City Council, June 18, to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Garcia,
Here.
Councilmember Kennedy, Councilmember Vyas, Mayor Pro Tem McEachron,
Here.
Mayor Cox.
Here. Could the city attorney, does he have any announcements from the executive session?
Thank you, Mayor Cox. We had two scheduled closed session items, one for the Airport Authority, one for the City Council, set forth on the agenda. No reportable action with respect to those items. In addition,
You've made your point. Thank you very much. You've made your point. Thank you very much.
In addition, the council made findings pursuant to Government Code 549.9.42B2 to add 3 urgency items as set forth at the 5 o'clock meeting. Those were all existing litigation, and the case names were set forth on the agenda. There was also no reportable action with respect to any one of those 3 items.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask that Father Patrick Travers come up from a Holy Innocents Catholic Church. He will be giving the invocation, and if you'll remain standing, the Pledge of Allegiance by Lieutenant John Billings will be given for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Let's bow our heads in prayer. Recognize to whom you owe the fact that you exist, that you breathe, that you understand, that you are wise, and above all, that you know God and hope for the kingdom of heaven and the vision of glory, now darkly as in a mirror, but then with greater fullness and purity. You have been made a child of God, co-heir with Christ. Where did you get all this, and from whom? Who has given you dominion over animals, those that are tame and those that provide you with food? Who has made you Lord and Master of everything on earth? In short, who has endowed you with all that makes man superior to other living creatures? Is it not the God who asks you now, in your turn, to show yourself generous above all other creatures, and for the sake of other creatures? Because we have received from him so many wonderful gifts, will we not be ashamed to refuse him this one thing only, our generosity? Though he is God and Lord, he is not afraid to be known as our Father. Shall we, for our part, repudiate those who are our kith and kin? We pray then, Almighty God, for our council members, that they will be guided and that we accept that guidance in making good decisions for the people of Victorville. Amen.
Thank you, Father Travis. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to come down front at this point before we begin our normal session of the council. There's going to be a presentation of the military banner, and I would ask Mr. Frank DeMauro to join me down front. Testing, this is on. I'm going to read this. I read it just before the council meeting, and so I think this is worthy that the public hear this. Our military banner here, this program has been in effect since 2007, where the City Council of the City of Victorville and all the citizens of Victorville honor those individuals from Victorville that have served us and have served us as heroes, in my opinion. There have been 102 hometown heroes who have been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, and the banners are first unveiled here at the council meeting, and then they're displayed on the light poles up and down Civic Drive and all the way down Kentwood, and we get a lot of comments from certainly people who know the individuals from the Victorville area, and certainly then from those individuals who notice that banner and thank us for having this program. So I'm going to read this first, but I want you to join me in a warm welcome to Mr. Frank DeMauro. I'm going to read this, and then as soon as I finish, I want to ask Mr. Cliff Reynolds to come down. He'll have a couple of words to say, our former police chief. Is Cliff still here? There he is. United States Marine Frank DeMauro graduated from Serrano High School in 2008 and went on to attend Victor Valley College. Frank was a sheriff's explorer from 2004 until 2010. See the connection to our former police chief. Frank returned home from his first deployment in Afghanistan. I don't know when that was, when you returned. This last September. And is currently stationed at Fort Irwin. Frank will soon be redeployed to Afghanistan and plans to take this banner on his journey as a reminder of support from his hometown, Victorville. So, Frank, thank you very much. We're going to present this to you. Cliff, would you like to come down? Since he has some familiarity with you, he wanted to say a few words. We're going to give the microphone to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse my back to you all, but those of you that know me know that I'm not a fan of politics, but when I received a notification from Monica today that Frankie was getting this banner, I wouldn't have missed it for the world. I'm very proud of this young Marine. When I first met him, he was 14 years old, and he was one of my explorers, and I was very supportive of the Explorer program. I think it's a fantastic program, and it makes citizens, fine citizens out of our young people nowadays that are interested in law enforcement and things like that. Frankie was 14, quiet, very polite young man, and hadn't met his parents yet. But over the years, in my tenure here in Victorville, which was my hometown and a place where I kind of grew up in my career, really got to know Frankie and really got to love the kid. And I'm extremely proud of him. And I think that you should all be proud of him. He lives in this city, and it's because of young men like this that we can gather freely in public forums like this. And I just want to say thank you for your service. I'm proud of the man that you've become, and I'm proud of the leader that you've become. He rose to the ranks of our Explorer Commander, and you can see the stripes on his sleeve, and I'm sure there's more to come. But I know one day he's probably going to come back and be a fantastic deputy sheriff and leader in this community. So that's all I wanted to say. I wouldn't have missed this for the world, Frank. I'm very proud of you, and please give him a big round of applause.
I'd like to thank everybody. Mayor, I'd like to thank you and your staff for putting this on. It means a lot to be received this. Very grateful for it. Also like to thank Cliff Reynolds, an old mentor, and as well as my parents for putting me where I'm at today. Without their support, I wouldn't be able to do this. I talked to Monica a little earlier today, and from what I know, one of these has never been flown out other than just down the street. So I'll probably more than likely be taking this out to Afghanistan with me and showing it off out there and bringing it back home and fly it back out here. So thank you.
We just want to make sure you bring it back personally. Madam Clerk, City Clerk, would you present the agenda, please?
City Council of the City of Victorville welcomes the public's participation in tonight's meeting. Persons who wish to address the council on a specific item or any item that does not appear on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards located in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk prior to the meeting. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less as deemed necessary by the mayor. Communications are to be addressed directly to the city council. Individual comments to staff or members of the audience are not permitted. Any individual or group who engages in disruptive conduct during the meeting will be removed from the chambers by order of the mayor. Thank you for your cooperation. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council. There are several revisions to tonight's agenda. The first one is on item number 12. There is a revised resolution number 13-032, which reflects the correct total budget amount. Staff is requesting a continuance of City Council item number 19, which is a resolution number 13-034. The request is to continue this item to July 2nd. Item number A9, there is an amendment to the agreement by removing the Town of Apple Valley as a party to the Community Housing Development Organization Reservation and Commitment of Home Program Funds Agreement. And those are all the revisions I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, why don't you have Tammy join her? I'm sorry. On A9 again, real quickly.
Item number 12 is a revision to the total budget amount on the resolution. Item 19, the staff is requesting continuance to July 2nd. And on item A9, the agreement is being amended to remove the Town of Apple Valley as a party to the agreement.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
At this time, individuals may address the council on items on the agenda or off the agenda. If you're going to address the council on items on the agenda, we would hope that you would wait until that agenda item comes up. For individuals who want to address the council on matters not on the agenda, now is the time to do so. I will explain the 3-minute rule. If you have an item on the agenda, it's for public discussion. The public has been alerted, and those individuals can debate the item or appear and speak for and against. If you do not have an item on the agenda, then the City Council is prohibited from discussing it, answering questions, or debating the issue, because had it been on the agenda, it would be advertised and people would have the opportunity to come here and get that information. That is why we restrict those comments at this time to 3 minutes. If you need to be on the council agenda, you may make the request to the city clerk. That will be given to the council. You would have an opportunity then at a later time to express your opinions or your presentation to the city council. I have 4 cards. I will ask those individuals in the same order that I received them to come to the microphone and address the council. First individual, Mr. Joe Vale. He wished to testify on number 3. Do you want to wait till item number 3 comes up or now? This is now. Okay, go ahead. This is public comment. My mistake.
I was told that item number 3 was now. So that's
It is. My apologies. You're
Joe
absolutely right.
Vale, 16993 Abbey Lane, Victorville, California. I have 2 or 3 things I'd like to mention. I hope they're being taken care of. One of them was concerning the police department with motorcycle cops parking on the sidewalk with radar. I've talked with the police gentleman head of that and found out that it is legal for the motorcycle cops to hide behind the bushes along Green Tree Boulevard with a radar gun. The other thing I wanted to mention was the hole on the sidewalk on Amargosa near the city offices along that street with the police department. I've talked with the gentleman in charge of Public Works. A month ago, I brought this to the attention of a animal control officer who didn't seem to care whether it was there or not. A gentleman from the Public Works drove in. I mentioned it to him, and at least he put a cone over the hole. There's a metal plate that somebody could step into and fall and break a leg and cost us, the taxpayers, a lot of money. The other thing I wanted to mention was, talk about was, I didn't realize it was on the agenda, was this deal of the street light thing that's been proposed. I brought my ballots in today and found out that what was taking place, some of that, and placed my ballots in the box. And then I find on this tonight, there are a number of things concerning the city where the city controls property. So my question is concerning this, and I'm going to stay for the council meeting now that I found this on the meeting, is how many different parcels of property does the city own that they're voting positively for this city lighting thing? I think it's unethical for the city to vote my tax dollars against me, and that's what it would be.
Thank you. The next speaker, Mr. Ron Harbison.
I thank you for letting me address the council here. But you know, we've got things through the city mailed us, turn our street lights off. Numerous problems the city council has come up with. The city, just on the street lights, we haven't got an issue with the street lights because when I moved in, the lights was in and paid for. Now, the other thing about public safety, the other cities around us has taken a position against pot shops, or marijuana, if you like to put that term. The city council has not said nothing about pot shop. Now, one time I was here, they had a whole bunch of people speaking in favor of marijuana. But this city council here is negative. Now, when you go down and see all these pot shop operators, you see young kids out there waving their signs like they're in distress, but you don't see seniors out there. But I wish the city council would make a stand against marijuana. Also, some of this council problems has been forthcoming from other councilmen. Like the city of Bell, are we facing a situation like Bell, California? Have we asked the city manager and the city attorney to resign? I think it should be made possible because they're the ones that deal with the money. They're the ones that give the advice. But everything, and I appreciate let me get up here and say what I believe, and I thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harbison. Meet the new city manager, Mr. Doug Robinson. The next speaker is Mike Spivey, or Spy? Spy, okay. Good.
I'm not usually around here much to come to one of these, but I was hoping I could find out a little something about the water thing.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you, and my apologies. I'm not going to take this away from your time. You indicated item number 9, and item number 9 will be discussed by the city council. Do you want to go ahead and make your comments now, or would you rather wait until item number 9?
Rather make them now.
All right, you'll write ahead.
I'm here hoping to find out about the water thing because I pay almost as much in water fees as I do property taxes, and I don't even have water on my street, water meter, and you know, I'm hoping to find out what the standby water fee and all these other water fees I have are all about. I'm usually in Washington or Arizona, so I'm not around to find out about this stuff, but I happened to be here and thought I'd come to the meeting. Maybe you guys could explain it to me. Okay?
Thank you very much. When we get to item 9, I hope we will be able to explain that, and if we don't fully, feel free to come back to the microphone. 4 cards. We have a city employee that's going to come up to the microphone. We have, is it Armando Gutierrez that is going to speak and has requested an interpreter?
Buenas tardes todos.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Ok, buenas tardes todos. Que estén bien. Mi pregunta o o sea, no me siento bien con lo que está pasando esto de los aumentos, ¿verdad? Que está de agua, sobre el agua. Sobre el agua, precisamente. Entonces, yo pienso, como pues ellos están aquí, ¿verdad? Su trabajo es esto. Ellos están mirando la economía como está, pienso también, pero también la economía de nosotros está más, porque nosotros sabemos muchas personas que a veces estamos trabajando 2, 3 horas por día y eso para nosotros es duro y es difícil.
Good evening. He says he's here because he's concerned about the water and about the discussions about raising the waters. And he says he understands that that's your job and it's part of the economy, but his economy or residents' economy is really tough. He's already working a couple extra hours a day in order to try to make ends meet. So he's concerned about all the discussion and what the increases in water, how they're going to affect them. ¿Quiere específicamente decir cuál?
Pues sí, sobre los aumentos, sé que están diciendo sí. que quieren hacer. Pues yo de mi parte pues no estoy de acuerdo con eso.
He's not for the increases of water because he really can't afford them.
All right. We will have that discussion on when we get to agenda item number 9. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? And it may be necessary for you to explain the procedure at that time, but we hope we can fully explain it.
Y que cuando el número 9 venga, le vamos a explicar a ver qué están discutiendo para que sepa un poquito más.
Muchas gracias. Okay. Agradezco.
And then I have a card for agenda. Thank you very much. We have a card for agenda item number 7, and I'm sorry, it's
Wood?
Ward?
Wood.
Wood.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's actually for agenda number 9.
This is number 7 and 9 also, or?
Just our number 9. I actually just got, oh my gosh. It's for agenda number 9 also. My problem is, I've been here since 1984. I've never seen anything like this. And I'll tell you something, we are living in a very tough economy. A very tough economy. Heck, I'm unemployed right now. My mother, she doesn't make all that much money because she lives off my dad's VA and off her own Social Security. Me, I try to build computers, fix computers, and make enough money to help her out. What I'm saying is, I'm not for this. We're living in a really, really, pardon my language, piss poor economy. I'm praying it does jump back. I really do. All God and hope, I really do hope this economy comes back. But right now, this is not going to work. People out there are hurting, especially out in the Baldy Mesa area. I know it's going to be under Agenda 9, and we could talk more about this. I would like to learn more. I'd like to learn more about it. So I'm not for it. I'm not. Not now. Not till the economy jumps up. Not till we see more money coming back to our state, to our county, maybe to the city. Even though we're making pretty good progress out here. Heck, look at the mall. But again, I'm not for this. Sorry to say.
Thank you. And again, we'll be getting to that item.
Thank you,
and
sir.
Staff will be giving a presentation. If they don't fully answer your questions or concerns, feel free to come back to the microphone at that time. I have no other cards. I have no one else approaching, and so thank you very much for participating in that. And we will then move to agenda item number 4. And agenda item number 4, if there's some confusion, because I've asked the city clerk to interrupt me at will, because we're going to be bundling several items together. For example, on agenda item number 4, we're also going to consider items number 6, number 8, and number 12. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
So, if you're following the agenda, we're on agenda item number 4. We're also going to consider item number 6, number 8, and number 12. Now, these are resolutions. Item 4 is a resolution of the Library Board of Trustees. Number 6 is whoa, wait a minute. Is this correct that item 6 is a public hearing? Oh, these are all public hearings. I missed that. I'm sorry. So it's public hearing on item 4, 6, 8, and 12. On number 6, this would be SCLA Board of Directors for casting a ballot for SCLA-owned property in the proposed citywide street lighting assessment district. We have an individual who spoke about the unfairness of the city casting. What?
Item 6 is the budget.
Well, this is my agenda. I'm sorry. A page is behind the page. Item 6 is a resolution, number SCLA-A-13-001. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Presentation of request to conduct a public hearing, adopt a resolution number SCLA-A-13-01, establishing and adopting that SCLA budget for fiscal year 2013-2014. Item number 12, try to get all of these, is a public hearing to adopt the resolution, resolution number 13-032, and establishing and adopting the annual budget for fiscal year 2003-2014. At the conclusion of the hearing, we will be taking an action. We'll be taking two actions, one way or the other, but two of us have a conflict that we'll declare on a portion of this. Madam Clerk, you can remind me at that time. Are there any questions or comments of the council? If not, any
Mayor
questions
Cox,
of staff?
In order to avoid any conflict, I would suggest that you consider, with respect to item 12, only those portions of the budget that have nothing to do with the golf course. The reason you have a conflict is you both, Mr. Kennedy and Mayor Cox, both own properties adjacent to the golf course, so I would like to consider item 12 without any reference to the golf course. There are items in the budget related to the wastewater treatment plant. Ms. Valles has an exception. She is able to vote on this since she is a salaried employee and does not have the same conflict of interest concerns.
For the record, item 4, 6, 8, then we will consider the public hearing, item 12, without any reference to the golf course.
Mr. Mayor, are we covering 8 as well?
Well,
Yes.
mine
Yes.
says yes, 4, 6, 8, and 12.
Yes, that's correct, 4, 6, 8, and 12.
As part of our discussion, I raised the issue of depreciation in the water district. It's the only one of the departments that presented depreciation. All of them present capital improvements. I will like to make sure this motion is subject to removing depreciation from the water district budget.
Okay. That's the intent. We will continue the public hearing. Upon closing of the public hearing, you can make that motion. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, that works.
Any other comments from council members?
Is there a conflict for the Eagle Ranch LMATs?
No.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing on items 4, agenda item 4, 6, 8, and 12. 12 exclusive of any reference to the golf course.
In reading through these, this is Joe Vale again. In reading through these, I see nothing concerning how many dollars are involved. And this is asking to establish the budget. How many dollars are we talking about?
Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, this was the subject of the workshop at 3 o'clock today. And the total city budget for all of the entities is $170,743,735.
$170 million.
That is correct, sir.
What part of that is the library? Companion Library Board of Trustees, number 6. What part of that is number 6?
Mr. Vale, we'd love to give you a copy of the budget if you'd
I'm
like
just
one.
curious how many dollars we're talking about. 170 million is talking about number 8, Companion Library Board of Trustees, Residential Board of Directors, Victorville Water District. Interesting, $170 million.
Yes.
The library.
No. $170 million is all of the entities of the city.
The whole city. Everything. Including the railroad line that goes nowhere.
Are you done with your question?
I'm just asking, does that include everything?
And I'm asking you, are you done with your question? I would
Yeah.
like an opportunity
Yeah.
to provide a response, but you keep
Yes.
interrupting me. Okay, thank you. $170 million that I mentioned is everything that is involved with the city budget. The library portion, I'm looking for it as I speak, was approximately $650,000. I'm looking for the exact number. If someone else finds it before I do, please. $659,000 is the library portion.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vale. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council on these 4 items? If there are no other speakers or questions, I will close the public hearing at this time. Are there any questions from, by the way, for those who missed this, we started on the budget in a meeting with all the council members today at 3 and until 5:40. So we spent a lot of time on this today. I know everyone wasn't aware of that. We were hoping to get a large turnout. We had a fairly good turnout. We had a good discussion. Madam Clerk, just a question. Was that web streamed?
Yes, it was.
It was web streamed. So for people who did miss that discussion on the budget, and we discussed every department, that is available. Is it still available
Yes,
for
it
some
is.
time? Okay. Thank you very much. It is closed. We are now questions of the council members to staff. If there are no questions, you have Mr. Kennedy.
I would like to make sure this motion includes the removal of the depreciation line in the water district budget.
Second.
And also the motion, just for clarification, has no approval of any portion of the city budget as to the golf course.
That's understood. Those in favor of adopting those budgets for items number 4, 6, 8, and 12, please vote.
Motion by Councilmember Vyas, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
Now, for the record, approximately 3 years ago, as I recall, there was a opinion issued that Mr. Kennedy and I could have a conflict because we live on the golf course and therefore not to participate in budgetary matters or contract matters. We have avoided doing so, and we will actually declare that conflict. I will declare the conflict for the record and step out of the room, and Mayor Pro Tem will then conduct the public hearing for that portion of this public hearing on the budget.
And I'll do the same.
And just a point of clarification, the budget is printed, available. Anybody can come and get it at any time.
That's correct.
All right, agenda item number 12, specifically relating to the golf course portion of the budget. I'll open the public hearing on agenda item number 12. Anyone wishing to address the council at this time? All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and return it to the council for a decision.
If the council could do a voice vote on this item, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
Thank you.
We have completed item 4, 6, 8, and 12. Now, item number 5, consent calendar. Is that just a file? Does the council have to take notice to see?
Yes, this does require an action.
Okay. Chair's open for motion.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron, second by Councilmember Vyas. Motion carries unanimously.
Now, item number 6 was covered before with 4, 6, 8, and
Correct.
12. Item A1. Now, this is going to involve item A1, item A2, item A3, and item 21. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
Item A1, the public hearing to adopt resolution SCLA A-13. No. These got behind. That is correct. Oh. Okay. A1, SCLA Board Resolution Number 13-002, casting its ballots for SCLA-owned property in the proposed citywide street lighting assessment district in the affirmative and directing the chairman, vice chairman or executive director or his designee to execute the ballots on behalf of SCLAA. Staff has recommended so. Item A2 is successor agency, which is the successor agency of the Farm Redevelopment Agency. Same wording. It's a different portion of our city government. A3 is for the same wording, but from the water district for the land it owns. And on item 21, is casting the ballots for the city-owned property at proposed citywide lighting district. Same issue, from Director of Public Works and Water Department. Before we take that action, we had individuals to address the council who had some concerns in regard to this item, and city manager or city engineer, would you please give an explanation?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, one of the questions that came up was the number of parcels. I don't have that at my fingertips. However, I do have information regarding the amount that the city would pay in the event this is approved by the voters in total. And the city itself would be assessed approximately $40,000. And then the other agencies associated with the city would be assessed a total of almost $90,000. So the city entities would be contributing to the street lighting assessment district based on the parcels that the city owns and controls.
For the members of the public, would you explain why this action is before the council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This item has been in discussion for at least 8 months, 9 months at the council level. Effectively last year or the current year, the amount of property taxes that are received through the street lighting assessment district as well as the original street lighting district for the city do not equal. They are significantly less than the amount of money that it costs to provide the electricity to keep the lights on. In at least 2 sessions, maybe 3 sessions, staff presented options to the city council as to how to address that. One of those options considered would be turning off some of the lights all of the time. One option would be turning off all of the lights some of the time. One option could be finding some other revenue source which would necessarily cause a reduction in services in some other area of the city. Or one option would be to ask the citizens of Victorville, the voters, if they would be willing to assess themselves in order to keep the lights on at the same service level that they are now. I don't recall the exact meeting, but it was about a month ago that the city council approved this election. That doesn't mean that the city council is doing this. It doesn't mean that the city is doing this. What it means is the city council has asked its residents if it's an assessment that you would like to pay in order to keep the street lighting assessment at a level that will pay to keep the lights on at their current level. If ultimately this item fails, the council will have to consider either turning off the lights some of the time or finding another revenue source in which to pay this additional electric cost. If it is approved, then ultimately, as was shown to the council in the last couple of meetings, the revenue collection would be enough to pay to keep the lights on throughout the city. One area that has caused some confusion is that we have really several different types of properties with regard to whether or not they're paying into the street lighting district. The very original first part of the city pays for street lighting as a portion of their 1% property tax. It doesn't cost them any more or any less than any of us, but that their property tax pie is split with a small sliver going towards street lighting. There was a long period of the city's development that the homes pay nothing into the street lighting district. They pay nothing additional for street lighting, yet they have street lights. And then in, I'll say the more recent past, I don't know the year, the city passed a code amendment that requires that any new development annex into the new street lighting assessment district number 2. So chances are, if you're in a relatively new development, you are paying into street lighting assessment district number 2 an amount just under $27 per year. What this election is doing is it's asking the voters to decide if they would like to assess the entire city the same amount, which for a single-family residence would be just under $14 per year, rather than having some paying 27, some paying nothing, and some having it included in the property tax. So that's the issue. I know there have been a couple of questions about what lighting is being paid for. At this point, all the streetlights, if it's approved, all the streetlights would be paid for, as well as a portion of traffic signals, because traffic signals have street lighting associated with them. Any monies that's currently going to those maintenance efforts could then be used further on our roads, which is an overall benefit. All those options were discussed with the council, and ultimately the council voted with some trepidation, because this feels like a new tax, and it is a new tax, but it's not one that the council is implementing or imposing. It's one that the city council is asking the residents for input on by the way of a vote. I've fielded several, I'll say, negative phone calls, and expressed to them that their best way for them to express their opinion is by voting no. If you are against it, that's how you express your opinion. Certainly as a public hearing, or as a public item that this is, I know that you will open it up and you will receive comments, but at this point, the election has begun. The council can't make any changes to the way the election is being held, or ultimately what's being decided. That is up to the people of Victorville at this point in time. The items that are before you tonight would be for the city's votes. These came to me as the chief executive of the city, and I was not comfortable simply making a decision. And in discussing it with the attorney, it was appropriate to put them onto the agenda for council direction on how or if the city and its related entities should vote on this issue.
I think a little addition, for individuals that have owned their property going back to Prop 13 in 1978, there was a property tax at that time for streetlights that got frozen into the tax rate. Those individuals, as a part of their property tax bill, have paid for streetlights originally in the assessment district and since 1978 and continue to do so. The city council then, for some time, and the city wasn't growing, felt a little awkward in having a brand new tax for some of the people and having other people not understanding that it was a part of Prop 13 and didn't provide an assessment district. Some years ago, and I don't have the exact date, but the council discovered that sooner or later they're going to run out of money because people aren't paying, and so they began with all new development an assessment district for streetlights. And effectively, the people originally paying are paying about half, or to put it another way, the brand new developments is paying twice as much as those people in 78. But in the middle, there's a large number of people not paying anything. Based upon all the information that we could gather, based upon the discussions that we have had collectively and with staff and with our friends and neighbors, it seemed the fairness is that if everyone should pay for the streetlights, and in doing so, it substantially lowers the bill almost by half from those people that are in any assessment district of the new subdivisions in the last, 15, 18, 20 years? Something like that.
Wouldn't hazard a guess as to
So
when
it's
that-
equalizing that bill for the streetlights so that everyone pays. The end result of that is that everyone will pay and everyone will pay the same. It seemed to be the fairest way to go. This is why we have presented it, and this is why we have been discussing this for some time now. Questions of the council or comments?
Mr. Mayor, let me add one thing. There was a question about whether or not someone has streetlights or doesn't have streetlights. I've already got them. I don't have them. This isn't to put in new streetlights. It's not to add or subtract streetlights. That would be a capital cost. This is simply for the ongoing cost of providing 90-some% of it is electricity costs. And in areas where it's open land, there are adjustments for fairness so that they're not paying the same as an area that has available streetlights on their curb.
Thank you for that. I had asked the gentleman in the back if we didn't answer all the questions to come up, and also have one other card, so go ahead and come up if you have a question, speak into the microphone, and then immediately following you, sir, would be Mr. Norm Miller.
About the street lighting, perhaps maybe you can go to some of these new tracks that were paved roads, no houses, and you have street lights on. And one in 395 and Eucalyptus, where the roads are paved, there's no houses, and all the streetlights are on. Perhaps maybe start there by turning those lights off. And now, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, excuse me. I hate to say this, but the agenda looked very confusing to me tonight. I don't know if that's something special or just by chance, but I see a lot of A1s, A2s, A3s, and we've never seen that before that I know of. But anyway, my question is, the street lighting includes the airport? We pay for the lighting in the airport?
I have no idea if it's even related to the airport in any way.
Does
so,
SCLA up there?
Yeah, I know what it is, I'm sorry. But I don't know that we're paying for any streetlights there.
Go ahead, Keith.
Keith Messler?
My understanding is that this is an application of citywide street lighting, including street lights relating to signalization, and because the airport is a part of the city and the airport authority is a major landowner, and because this is based, the formula is based upon land ownership in the city of Victorville, is why there's an application of charge to the airport authority. As to actual street lights, for those that are operating, I would imagine if they're public right-of-way street lights, then they would probably be a part of it, but certainly not things like the airfield lighting.
So no lights on the airfield, no lights operate with the airport operation, but this would be on a street, public street.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, that's correct.
We couldn't afford the lights on the airfield. Anyway, my question is, I thought the airport was basically separate from the city, and it would seem to me like the SCAA should be paying for the lights, not the city of Victorville. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm.
Mr. Mayor, just in response to that question, I don't have the math in front of me, but I would imagine, given the volume of land that the airport authority owns, I suspect their assessment would be well above the actual electricity charge and street lighting that actually exists on the airport itself.
Thank you. Mr. Vail.
Joe Vail again. I have a problem with the city owning all these different parts, water department, SCLA, golf courses, and all these other things, and that is taxpayer property. And if the majority of the taxpayers say they don't want this thing involved, and yet the majority of the land is controlled by the city, and the city votes for yes for all this, we're outvoted before we ever start. And that's our tax dollars that's doing that. And I think it's wrong for the city to vote yes on all these as instructed here, which is basically telling all of the citizens, your vote don't count. I think you shouldn't be voting on that. I think that should be up to the citizens who are paying the taxes, and the city property is not paying the taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Vail. Yes, ma'am. Just 1 second, sir. We have Mrs. Miller. Come on up.
Yes. This is Mrs. Miller. Nice to see you all, but we have some problems going on. And I'm working on it very hard. I have not got it all together yet, and that's why I really wasn't going to speak and mention anything about it until I get it all together. And there has been some mistakes made, and I don't feel the people. Now, I know some of the housing tracts are not paying. They do have lights. They have lights, but they're not paying anything. So now they're going to come out and hit all the vacant land, which I have 2 security lights. I pay for my own lights. There's not going to ever be any street lights out there where we're at, okay? And I don't feel I should pay for lights, and I'm not going to use it. It's like paying for something you're not going to have. And I don't feel it's right. And I really feel as soon as I get all this stuff together, which I'm working on very hard, I've made 2 visits to the city already, actually 3, and I'm working on it, and I hope and pray that you guys do not, when we vote on it, that it don't pass, especially the property that is vacant. You know, it's just not fair to the people. We're getting ripped off, and I don't think it's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Sooner or later, I think that either Doug or someone needs to address the question. I had a question at my home, what about vacant property? Will they pay? And as opposed to individuals who own improved property. And secondly, why do we have streetlights in vacant areas? And I've taken 2 tours. Yes, we do have a few streetlights in vacant areas, but extremely few, very few, because all the streetlights, capital-wise, are put in by development. The capital charge is paid for all new development, the subdividers, and so there's no reason, unless it's a safety issue, to have a streetlight out in a vacant area. The other issue that came to me was in regard to, are we looking for funds to pay for streetlights at the base? I conferred with staff, and I didn't get final numbers, and this may be necessary to do, that the amount of money that they will pay will far exceed, because it is the airport is self-supporting. There's rents, there's building rented, it's self-supporting, plus they will pay a fee that goes into the streetlight. If I understand this right, it reduces the cost that every individual has to pay. It doesn't add to it. You're not paying for the lights, they're paying for your lights. I think there's some confusion there. So anyway, any comments?
Mr. Mayor, let me answer those 2 questions quickly. Number one, the issue of vacant land. Vacant land is a part of the proposed assessment district. However, they don't pay at the same rate as developed land. They don't pay the same rate as a single-family residence. There's some assumption that those homes that have larger lots that don't have streetlights in front of them now, that there is some benefit to them to having the rest of the city lit with streets, because at some point they will drive on streets. As I mentioned before, the best way that they can voice their opinion is by voting no if that's how they so choose.
Mr. Mayor, and I might add from the airport's perspective, which I think could also be considered from a citywide perspective, and using your analogy and even the comment and analogy by Mr. Robertson just earlier with respect to the amounts being paid by the airport authority likely exceeding the actual benefit or the actual direct cost to the public right-of-way system that it has out there. That's looking at it from a very singular perspective, but not looking at it from a district-wide perspective, which it's my understanding that this formula that's been established developing the fee is from a system-wide or from a district perspective. So, for example, roadways that have street lights that lead people to the airport, as an example, or the signalization that gets people to the airport. It's a part of that larger system that is of benefit to the airport authority. So if you look at it singularly, just as the airport, and whether or not it costs, that amount that's in this agenda item for the streetlights out at the airport is not the correct way to look at it in support of this item.
I agree it's not, but I'm telling you, a lot of people will look at it that way. But they're entitled to do that. And everybody's entitled to their opinion, but thank you for that explanation.
Mr. Mayor, one thing I forgot to mention, if I might. You mentioned in the earlier statement concerning how that people who have been here a long time, the street lights were all part of the tax program at the time of the property taxes. And I've been here since 1965. And all this time we've been paying property taxes, and it was included, street lights were included in our property taxes, if I'm not mistaken. And so to say that we're not paying our fair share isn't correct. And just because other things have been added, new districts, I can understand how they could add new districts with housing tracts being built and causing the developers to put those things in. But that should not then come back upon all the people who have been here at that period of time. A lot of houses and a lot of people here on fixed incomes from difficult times, years in the past, and now raise that tax and then have the city voting and all that stuff to raise our taxes with our property. I think it's wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Vail.
Mr.
In
Mayor,
all
let me
fairness,
interrupt you.
before you speak, let me clarify. The city of Victorville originally had a street lighting assessment district for the original part of the city. Under the street lighting laws at that time, every 7 years, the city council was required to hold a public hearing and either continue or deny the property tax rate for the street lighting district. And it did so. In a couple of years prior to 1978, the city council had extended that street lighting district for another 7 years, I believe. Might have been 5 years, but I think it was 7. When Prop 13 occurred, which is extremely unique to California and different, all the taxes were frozen at that time, and therefore people didn't receive a reduction. It was rolled into the taxes they paid. You can't find it on your tax bill, But according to the change that they made at the state level, all taxes being paid would continue to be paid unless it was an assessment district. If it was a tax and not an assessment, it would continue to be paid. So the people who were here at that time and still own the property, a portion of that property tax that they were paying at that time continues to be paid, continues to be collected by the city, but it isn't shown as a separate item, and you don't pay any more property taxes as a result of it. It makes up the 1%. So while technically you've been paying, and you paid whatever the rate was, you received a reduction because it could not exceed 1%. So it's a little complicated. I'm sorry about that, but Prop 13 was extremely unusual. Doug?
Mr. Mayor, sorry for interrupting earlier. The comment about a vacant development that has street lights that are lit now but doesn't have any homes. In that case, obviously I don't know what the development is exactly, but if there's no homes there, then those streets and those street lights would not have been accepted into the city system.
I wouldn't have thought
So if they're lit, they would be lit by the developer at this point in time.
That's fine.
I would assume that he's doing that or she is doing that in order to try to reduce illegal dumping or vandalism. But if there's no homes there, then I'm confident that the roads would not have been accepted and the streetlights would not be accepted at this point in time.
We do know that there's partial and unfinished subdivisions that were not accepted into our system. We do not maintain the streets in those. We do not maintain the drainage. We do not maintain the streetlights.
Sounds like Victorville is under growing pains. That's what it sounds like.
I'm sorry?
The city's under a lot of growing pains right now.
With
the growing
Can you give your name again, please? I'm sorry.
Hello? Okay, sorry. It sounds like the city is under growing pains. We're growing quick, but it sounds like we're having a lot of pain right now because of money going out and not enough coming in. How about cutting off programs, certain programs that you guys are putting too much money into? Taxpayers' money going to a lot of programs that maybe put them on pause, help you out with the lighting right now until the time when we go up on vote. It's just an idea. Just cut the programs. Some programs that say, hey, okay, I'm sorry, we're going to cut this for right now, pause it for right now, until we get back and get the flow going again. Just a crazy idea. It's just programs. Pause them up.
And I appreciate your comments. In all due respect, we have individuals who say, I don't use the police department, therefore I don't want to pay taxes for the police. I don't use the fire department, I don't want to pay taxes for the fire. We live in a community, I don't use the parks, I shouldn't pay taxes for the parks. What makes this community great is we're all participants in making this a quality city, and sometimes this council here has to recognize that and bite the bullet. Yes, ma'am. Step right up, pull that microphone down, and tell us who you are.
I need translator, please.
I'm sorry?
I need translator because I speak Spanish. Más better for understanding.
Hang on just one second.
Please. My name is Marta Juárez. Yo vivo cerca del 395 y no tengo drenaje y tengo 2 años pagando el drenaje y creo que no es justo eso.
She lives by 395 and she has 2 years of paying for drainage and she doesn't have anything over there. And she's been paying it for 2 years. But
I'm
she
sorry.
doesn't have
I can't.
I'm sorry.
Oh, drainage.
Drainage. She's been paying for 2 years.
Okay. Is there any drainage fees in this proposal?
No, Mr. Mayor, this has nothing to do with drainage fees.
Okay. If you'll assure this young lady, we will get back to her and talk to her about that. We would be more than happy to, but it's a different subject matter.
Ellos van a hablar con usted después sobre el drenaje, pero están hablando de luz.
Sí,
sobre
sí.
la luz.
Ajá, sí.
Pero
Okay.
va a venir para
Sí.
que alguien la vea.
De la luz también, lo que quiero es que pues vivo cerca del 395, no tengo nada de luz alrededor y pues la verdad no entiendo por qué vamos a tener que pagar lo que quieren cobrar.
She said she also wanted to talk about the lighting, that
Okay.
she says she doesn't have any lights around her, but she wants to know why is she going to have to pay more for lighting she doesn't have.
Ujú. Cuando yo llegué a vivir esa casa, teníamos una luz porque hay un poste de luz ahí dentro de mi terreno y lo quitaron.
She said when she moved in, there was one light post inside her lot, but then they took it down, and so she has no lighting.
Nada de luz que hay alrededor porque vivo en un rancho que está
She said the
desierto.
ranch is open, it's an open field, there's nothing, and they took the lighting, the one post she had.
And I understand, appreciate the comments. On the other hand, when you equalize the city lights citywide, it's for people who live in the city. You're going to take advantage of those lit streets unless you stay in one spot and never move. So it's to the benefit of everyone. That is the theory.
Las luces que está hablando van a iluminar toda la ciudad, entonces dice que usted también se va a beneficiar de todas las luces que ven. Pero lo que están discutiendo ahorita es que está en ahorita están votando, están preguntando que los residentes voten si quieren o no, sí o no. Eso es lo que ahorita están esperando los votos de las personas, los residentes, para ver si quieren pagar más o no.
Ok, sí es lo que estoy entendiendo, nada más que quieres poner todos mis pruebas ahorita porque, pues para que se me sea escuchado desde ahorita.
Claro.
Porque ya tengo tiempo tratando de que me escuchen y no, hasta ahorita nada.
Okay. She said she wanted to make sure and be heard because she said she's been trying to communicate with the city, but she hasn't been able to until now. So she wanted to make sure to be heard.
Please do me a favor for the council, get her name, address, so that we absolutely will communicate and keep her informed. Thank you. Mr. City Manager, just 1 second. Mr. City Manager, when will the ballots be counted to make a determination if this fails or passes in regard to this proposal?
I believe it's July
16th.
July 16th.
Yeah, the public hearing is July 16th, and at the public hearing, that's when the ballots will be tabulated.
Okay.
It may take quite some time, probably hours.
Yes.
But those haven't been counted, they haven't been opened, and
No, we are not permitted to open the ballots and start counting until the close of the public hearing.
and that's July 16th?
July 16th.
Okay. I wanted everyone to understand that the decision is not being made tonight. And you, sir, you had a comment?
You just walk up here, like if you need to talk, or how does this work?
Come up to the microphone and please give us your
At any
name.
time, or?
Well, this is not a public hearing per se, but we want to hear what you have to say, and we welcome your input.
Oh, okay. My name is Jose Ortega. I've been a homeowner here in Victorville since the year 2000. And I guess I just want to know why the city is in such disarray or why it has so many problems. I mean, I don't understand what happened in the city of Victorville. When I first moved here, it was not doing bad. Now I'm seeing all these taxes. I'm getting taxed for schools. I mean, just taxes are going up and skyrocketing or whatever. I have heard about the city's I guess the failure of the power plant out there or something. I don't know if this has something to do with it. I've seen across the street where they have spent money, the water district has spent money on a percolation pond or whatever it was. They put these two big old holes in front of my property in the desert, fenced it in. They had people drill, and I mean, I guess it failed because they're using it as a dump or something. I don't know what they're doing there. But it's got no water in it, and from the last thing I understood, it failed. And they're saying because it was clay or something. I mean, all you got to do is go water your trees out there, and you see that it's clay, that water just sits there. So I don't understand why they spent money to do that in the first place. And I mean, I'm the one paying for it. And I don't agree with the new water tax that you guys want to do. And I guess my other question is, how come you didn't do the water assessment tax thing like the gentleman over here with the lighting? I mean, why didn't you put it on a ballot like I guess he did, or was it you, city manager? Or?
No, he is the manager, but it's not his decision, it's a council decision.
Okay, but you guys did this. I have it at home. He sent me a ballot saying whether I agree with it or disagree with it, right?
Yes.
How come you guys didn't do the water assessment thing like
I'll
that?
explain that once you finish.
Okay, that's kind of my question.
Thank you
I guess
very
I'm
much.
done. Do I sit down? Stand?
You can sit down, thank you. You've covered several items. When the Water District began the percolation, they received some state grants because of the diminishing water table. The Water District used grants on their monies. They did not use street lighting monies or police department monies or anybody else's monies. And the reason that we have the situation we have with the street lights is because there is a desire to have the streets lit in the city, and you cannot use Rec and Park money for the street lights. You cannot use the police department's funding for the streetlights. You can't use the fire department for the streetlights. And so when people say, are you going to use the street lighting money for something else? No. The money is restricted to streetlights. The money collected for streetlights is expended on streetlights and nothing else. The energy bills and the number of streetlights have gone to the point where there will be no money to pay the full bill. And the choice is, as the city manager explained, to find another way to do the street lights or begin taking them down or shutting them off. This proposal, because some people are not paying and some people are, but all receive the benefit, it seemed that the proposal would be to equalize it citywide. The water district rates are for the water district users and taxpayers and for the cost of the water, and we deal with these restricted funds where we cannot, by our choice, decide to take money from police or fire or rec and park or Little League to pay for streetlights. So the money we collect for streetlights go to streetlights. There are not sufficient monies collected. Whether or not the city was rolling in money or flat broke, you have the identical problem that we have to face, and that is there are insufficient income from the street lighting account to pay the electric bill. And so the purpose of this hearing is to find a way to equalize where everyone pays and then everyone can enjoy the benefit.
Mayor, I'd like to call for the question.
Any questions of the council? I think we've debated this at length. I'm sorry, Mr. Vail. I'm sorry. We've been up here 4 times. We've tried our best to accommodate you. We have to bring this to an end.
You like comments from us?
Comments from the council members.
Go, Ryan. You want me to go?
Well, this is not a discussion or debate about whether or not we do this or not. We've already put the ballots out there. So the ballots will come in, they'll be counted, and if it's an affirmative, then it'll go into place. If it's a not, then it won't go into place. And then the city council will have to decide at that point in time what we do about street lighting. But the fact of the matter is street lighting to me is a public safety issue. We start turning off the lights on our streets, and I've got deputies running around after people they can't see. Is that what you guys, is that what you want? Is to have less safe streets than they already are? I don't think so. So I think that this is a general benefit to the entire population of our city. And again, we're not here debating tonight because we've had this discussion on several occasions this council has as to what we do. We put it to our voters to whether or not they want to do it or not, and it's up to them. This is just a vote tonight on whether or not we vote affirmative with respect to parcels that we own.
This is why I will vote in a positive way for our properties, our ballots to be voted yes. I live in Victorville. I don't spend many evenings in Old Town. I don't spend many evenings in Brentwood. There are a lot of places in Victorville I don't go in the evening. I'm usually at home in the evening. I don't need a street light at my house. But it matters to me that Old Town has street lights, and it matters to me that Brentwood has street lights. And for me to say, I don't want to pay for those street lights because I don't use them is not a responsible decision for me as a council member. Now, if you live in your home and you don't care about anybody else in the city, fine, vote against it. As a council member, I can't make that vote. I have to do what is best for the health and safety and prosperity of this city. Turning off streetlights is not the answer. Here's the issue. Some people are paying something and some people are paying nothing. That's not right. I own a home and I own the lot next door to my home. I could not tell you. I have no idea if I'm paying anything for street lighting or not. I don't know. I haven't looked at my tax bill. Doesn't matter. I'm going to pay on both of those lots my $14 a year to make sure that we have street lights in the city. I'm going to vote my personal property that way. I'm going to vote the city's property that way. That's my issue.
Any other comments from the council?
I'd just like to say that I think that this council did the responsible thing and gave it to the public to vote on so that we are not your dictator and so that you can decide how you want to assess yourself. And we want to hear everyone's voice. And so that's what we did. We're not here to vote yes or no, but we're here to give it to you at this point. Once we get the information back of what you want, then we can understand a little bit more where we need to go with it.
I think the misunderstanding is that we're not voting to approve this. We're voting to how we cast our vote for our property, the same as you have the opportunity to cast your vote, except we allow you to come and discuss it, and we've discussed it to the point that it's now the time for the council to take an action. The chair is open for a motion.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron, second by Councilmember Kennedy. And just for clarification, this is on items A1, A2, A3, and 21.
Correct.
Is this a motion to approve or deny?
Motion to approve.
Vote yes on our ballots.
Cast your vote, please.
Don't everybody leave. We have more to talk about.
Madam Clerk, is the next item
A5.
A5?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Written communications, Southern California Logistics Airport. Sublease agreement, amendment hangar number 747. Approval of this will produce $648,384 in revenue for fiscal year 13-14. Chair is open for a motion if there are no questions.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron, second by Councilmember Garcia. Motion carries unanimously.
A6. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That's correct.
Supplemental agreement to land lease between the United States Secretary of the Air Force, State of California, California Air National Guard, Southern California Logistics Airport.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Councilmember Valles. Motion carries unanimously.
In our agenda, item 7 has been handled with 17 and 16. Is that correct, or is this a new one?
Item number 7 is in conjunction with items number 10 and 16.
Okay, so we are at item number 7.
That's correct.
And therefore, we will handle item number 7, number 10, and number 16 as one item. This item is authorization of officers to deposit and withdraw monies in the local agency investment fund. There's no question of the staff. Chair is open for motion.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron, second by Councilmember Valles. Motion carries unanimously.
A1, A2, A3, and 21 have been handled. Agenda item number 8, 4, 6, 8, and 12 have already been handled.
Correct.
Agenda item number 9. This is a public hearing from the Water District, the Water District. And before we open the public hearing, either City Manager Doug Robertson or Sean McGlade, explanation, please.
Mr. Mayor, I will ask Mr. McGlade to come down and give a brief presentation explaining what these standby charges are. There was a question earlier on item number 7 that also pertained to number 9, and the biggest difference between item 7 and number 9, 7 would be a new assessment, whereas number 9 has appeared on your property taxes for quite some time now. Mr. McGlade, if you could explain how long this, or at least to your knowledge, how long these standby charges have been on, and if there's any change in them at this time, or if this is merely an annual assessment.
Clarification, does this standby charge apply to any approved or occupied property?
There are 2 districts, so the rules that are in place for each district are slightly different, one from the other. So let me start, first of all, with the Baldy Mesa Water District. The standby charge was levied in 1969, and it was an amount of $15 for each acre or portion thereof, and that is applied to every parcel within the district. Since 1975, the former Victor Valley Water District has levied the standby charge of $10 per acre or parcel of land, and it is levied on parcels only that lie within 660 feet of a water line.
Sean, excuse me. I can't speak to Baldy Mesa, but Victor Valley is only unimproved property.
That's correct, within 660
Not on
feet.
people's homes or their businesses. It's
No,
only
once-
on vacant land.
Once they connect to the system, they cease to pay the standby charge.
It's not an increase in rates. It's
not.
not a new tax. It's been on the books at Victor Valley since '75.
We have
People
to do
have been
this
paying it since 1975.
That's correct. We've been doing this, or the districts have been doing this every single year. They must renew it every single year, and they've been doing it, in the case of Baldy Mesa, since
Is
1969.
Baldy Mesa also on unimproved land?
It's on unimproved land, but it is also on the improved land. They don't have the, it doesn't get dropped when they connect.
And why is that?
It's just the rules that they adopted at the time. All that's happening is that we're taking an action to continue those
But
assessments.
isn't the answer that all the Baldy Mesa district, that it continues until a debt has been paid for a previous indebtedness?
In the case of Baldy Mesa, that is used for some debt service, yes.
That's what I thought.
Excuse me, that's actually just simply to isolate that debt so that we could consolidate the forward obligations of the district as one. We isolated the debt by using these standby charges to pay it. And we isolated the revenues in the former Victor Valley Water District so that those revenues, those capital funds that have been held can't be spent in the former Baldy Mesa Water District. So in effect, since 1969 and 1975, these exact same fees have been in place. There is no change to them. If the council were to not adopt this on an annual basis, if at some point you still needed them, you would have to have an election similar to the street lighting assessment district, would have to have public comments and a decision on how much or how little it should be, and it would be a new tax at that time. So this is essentially a continuance of a tax that hasn't changed in 40 years.
Right.
And it's $10 per acre per year. $10 per acre per year. I had somebody complain to me the other night because she owns 50 acres in Victorville and it's unimproved. So she got to write a $500 check. I said, good. Been doing it every year up to now, so just don't expect it to change.
And that money is used to keep the infrastructure in place so that when they are ready to improve the property, they can connect to water, right?
That's correct. That's exactly right.
I mean, how else are we going to pay?
That's right.
All right, any further questions of staff? Okay, the chair is open for motion.
I believe the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, it is a public hearing. I am so sorry. Yes, I will open the public hearing at this time. Any individual in the audience that would like to address the council on this issue, please come forward, give your name, and give us your thoughts, questions, or comments. Here we have an individual.
It's actually very interesting that this is an ongoing tax. So this is an ongoing tax. So once our water is connected out in Baldy Mesa, which, by the way, Uswin Wood, that's my name, Uswin Wood. This is an ongoing tax that's been going on since 75 or 69, whatever the thing says here, since 1969. Just to connect our water.
It's a standby and availability so that at the time that and I don't know about Baldy Mesa, but it's in Victorville, you have to be within 660 feet of a line serving the general public or you can't be charged. But if you have the ability to hook up and receive the service, this is what this is for, to ensure that you have the ability to get water when you need it.
I would say let's put this on the ballot itself. We have voting come up on November, right? For this year, is there voting coming up in November this year for new taxes and stuff, or is that next year? Something going on with that?
The city
I
is
don't
not
remember.
proposing any new taxes on the ballot that I know of this year or next year.
Okay, well, seems like something that this needs to be, I guess, ended. We live on 10 acres. That's a lot of money right there going out a year, every year, right? Where's that gentleman? Every year, right?
Yes. This
Okay,
is every
whatever.
year.
He's
This
not
is
even
every
paying
year.
attention. That's cool. Okay, well, wow. So it's just, we're paying more to our second mortgage on our property because we're paying a lot. Thank you very much, gentlemen, ladies. I guess you guys already answered our question here.
Are there any other individuals that want to speak on this item? Go ahead. Norm, you'll be next after him.
I guess, what is the Baldy Mesa Water District?
Baldy Mesa Water District is a former county water district that was formed, actually I think it was before the city was formed. The city consolidated the Baldy Mesa and Victor Valley water districts into one single water district with one administration. It's a subsidiary district of the city at this time. However, the requirements of that action had to separate those past finances from each other so that people that used to be in the Victor Valley Water District don't help reduce debt that went to pay for infrastructure in the former Baldy Mesa. In the case of Victor Valley, they had reserves, capital reserves. Those capital reserves that were paid by those customers can't be spent in the former Baldy Mesa area. They still exist as a single county water district with what's called Improvement District Number 1 and Improvement District Number 2.
Yes, Norm.
Norman Miller, and just maybe to clear a couple things up. I used to be on the Baldy Mesa Water District Board, and we moved up here, I don't know, first started up here about 1970, and the way it worked is that the Baldy Mesa Water District Board passed a fee that was for 30 years in 1969, a standby fee. And this standby fee was to cover improvements, major improvements, like if they needed a 12-inch water line to supply some kind of a development or something. That's what the money was basically used for, any kind of improvements. In 1999, when that standby fee was finished, they reinstated a new standby fee for 30 years. And that standby fee was set at $15 per acre or portion of an acre for everybody that was in the Baldy Mesa Water District. And most of that money, as I understand, went to build the arsenic treatment plant, which I felt we didn't need at all because everybody has arsenic in their body, so why in the heck do we have to build a plant to keep from getting arsenic to us? But anyway, that's beside the point. So anyway, as I understand now, the arsenic treatment plant may be going out because of new water things that are coming up. One of them, and it might be for what this gentleman's talking about, is the settlement ponds, where they drill holes in the pond and then the water percolates down through that. And what the drilling was for is find, well, what kind of earth was in that pond. And some of it's clay, some of it's sand, and the water goes faster or slower depending on what's underneath it. And they did have a successful, that's the water pond that's over by the two or three water tanks at Amethyst and Sycamore. And I noticed there was some water in there a while back. It's dried up now again, but so something's going on there. I don't know what it is. And the way it's going to work, my understanding is they're going to get water. It's Section 5, I think they call it, or something like that, where they're going to get water and bring it into Victorville and blend it to where they won't need the arsenic treatment plant. And hopefully this is all successful, and maybe that will bring some of the water bills down where we do pay for the treatment plant materials. We don't pay for the plant itself, but for the materials. The standby fees paid for the plant. So that's basically where that stands. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Are there any other comments? Any other individuals? I don't see any. I do not have any cards, do I? Therefore, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. Comments from the council members or questions of staff? There are no comments, no questions. Chair's open. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the only thing there was a lot of misinformation that was expressed earlier in public comments. A lot of ideas about what this is without understanding what it really is. And I think I'd like to know that at least everybody who had the wrong idea understands now what it is, because we've had it a long time. We've been paying this for a long time. You've been paying your $100 a year for this standby fee on your vacant property for as long as you've owned it, probably. It's been around a long time. I have a lot next to my house. I got to pay my $10. So if I ever decide to connect it.
But if you ever decide to build on the lot, you have availability to water. You have the right to hook up. And this is the insurance that you have paid.
And I'm never building on a lot, but I'm still willing to pay my $10 because it's the right thing to do.
Okay, chair's open for motion.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Councilmember Vyas. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 10 was handled with 7. A3 was handled with A1 and 21. Agenda item number 11. Am I correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, you are. And it's item 11 and A7. Those are consent calendar items, so one motion can be taken on both of those.
11 and A7, consent, motion.
Motion by Councilmember Vyas, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 12 was handled with item 4, 6, and 8. Previously been taken care of. Are we at agenda item number 13?
Yes.
This is a public hearing item. Resolution 13-014, proposed revision, electrical service rules, regulations, and rate schedules. Doug, any additional comments on this?
Nothing additional, just very briefly, it's been quite some time since we've had a rate increase for our Victorville Municipal Services, Utility Services customers. These are customers in the Foxborough Development, Foxborough Project area, as well as at new businesses at SCLA. Doesn't affect our residents in any way whatsoever. And as you can see in your agenda item, our rates are still extremely competitive in regard to, or the proposed rates are still extremely competitive in regard to Southern California Edison, making Victorville a more attractive location than those areas served by Edison. And we are also competitive and beat, for the most part, with one small exception, our competitors, if you will, in Rancho Cucamonga and Moreno Valley.
Thank you. No more comments? Chair's up for motion.
This is a public hearing item,
Public
Mr.
hearing.
Mayor.
Why is this a public hearing, since it doesn't affect the general public?
The business owners have the opportunity. They were notified on their bills that this is up for the vote of the City Council at tonight's meeting. We have received no comment from anyone, residents or business owners, that may be affected by this rate increase to date.
All right. Still open the public hearing in regard to this item. I have no cards. I have no request to speak. Is there anyone who wants to speak on this item? Seeing none, I hereby close the public hearing. Just want to state once again, this does not affect the general public. Only those individuals who are contracting for that service. Chair's open for a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron. Motion carries unanimously.
The next item is item number 14. This is a public hearing regarding unpaid transient occupancy taxes. Any questions of staff before I open the public hearing?
Yes. I'd like to know how these taxes were not correctly reported by the business owners of these hotels. How it happens that we had to hire an outside contract auditor, who I know their organization, they do a great job, and they found this. Maybe Adele, is Adele here? Does anybody know the answer to that? Doug?
Historically, our former finance director, this was not something that was aggressively pursued. It's sort of a legacy attitude to not pursue it. We have good relationships with our hotel owners. And there came a point in time that we became aware that some of the hotels were not reporting correctly, and some of the hotels weren't reporting at all or weren't paying at all. And when staff came to me, I said, to be fair, we needed to look at every one. There are, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I think 26 or 28 hotels in the city. All but these 7 are either have complied previously or complied as a part of this audit. And at this point, we intend to do this on a more regular basis now.
What was this audit period?
This was 2010, 11, and 12. The law allows us to study one of the years, 2012, and then apply that percentage to the other 2 years, and we did that utilizing that section of the law.
Mr. Robinson, generally, when there is a dispute and there is a requirement for legal and accounting fees, the loser pays those. Can we assess the cost of our consultant upon those individuals that fail to comply with the law?
I'm not aware that we can. I see the attorney shaking his head to confirm.
No, that's not provided for in your TOT ordinance, so I don't think you'd be able to recoup those costs. If we have to litigate, we may be able to get them at that point.
Can we modify the TOT ordinance to provide for that?
We certainly can look into doing that and see if that's legal to do, absolutely.
That's a matter for another time, but I want Madam Clerk to take note of this, and council will discuss it another
Do
time.
those amounts include penalties and interest?
They do.
Yes, they do.
At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. I have one card to speak on this matter. Mr. Philip Eglanian. I'm sorry, I may not got that correct.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Philip Elganian. I represent Green Tree Hotel, or as all of you know it as Green Tree Inn. It happens to be 50 years old, and to answer Mr. Kennedy, he asked an excellent question, and maybe I can answer, and then I ask my question. Your question was, why is this happening now and not before? And I would like to ask the same question. And what the city has done, in my opinion, is a grave mistake of bundling everybody in who has been paying taxes, who's been paying all the TOTs. I have no problem with that. And to answer you why it hasn't been done before, because when you pay, as we have paid, Green Tree Inn has paid, you sign at the bottom of that paper under penalty of perjury, this is the correct amount. Now, for city manager to come and say, you know what, I'm going to bundle everybody together because 5 or 6 of the hotels don't even pay City of Victorville, and bring us into the table and into the picture that we do pay and have been paying forever, it's not right. I'm here to object. I have no problem paying the taxes that are due to the City of Victorville. But on the other hand, to put us through an outside consultant coming in on contingency and having him audit, which we opened our books to the audit. I don't know about the rest of the people. I don't think the rest of the people did it. But our books were open on the day that the auditor wanted to come in. I don't know how he conducted his audit. He came up with numbers that are unsubstantiated, and we don't know where these numbers come from. And then to further now come and tell me that, oh, well, we think that you owe us taxes. It's not correct. I oppose it on behalf of my hotel, Green Tree Inn. I'm talking on behalf of Green Tree Inn only. And what you guys have to do as city manager, council members, and the mayor, that's your business. But to come and in this time that we are hurting, and we have to do everything to make this city successful, I would suggest that we should concentrate on bringing more business for the hotel by City of Victorville, having a visitors bureau. Why don't we have a visitors bureau that can speak out and help people say, hey, we are here? And on that note, I want to go back to 11 years ago. I spoke to the people 11 years ago against City of Victorville spending $8-9 million on building the golf course building by coming and adding it to the hotel. And therefore, we will have a conference center that we can attract conventions to come, bring city taxes to the city. Well, that's didn't go well. But let's do the right thing today. Let's get the people who owed city money, let them get paid, but don't become, I don't know what word I can use, but don't come and hit the people who are paying their taxes on time every quarter and hurt us further than what we are. And on that note, I want to add another thing. We at the Green Tree, after 50 years spending a lot of money, didn't come to the city to ask any money from the city like the Victor Valley Mall did. We didn't ask for any tax advantages like they got for $28 million. We didn't do any of that. We are creating jobs by our own money putting forward to make the hotel a success, to make City of Victorville a success. We are part of the fabric of this community. And if Green Tree shuts down because of all these other things that everybody else doing wrong on the other side, I hold the city responsible for that. And I am at the verge of leaving this city and never coming back. And it will be a disgrace. We need help. We need a visitors bureau. We didn't ask for any tax credits, any help, nothing. We are doing our own thing. We are rebuilding that place to be a masterpiece for City of Victorville. And soon, hopefully, we will have our reopening of the Victorville after 50 years of being here, part of this community, helping this community, hoping to stay in this community, and hoping to welcome everybody from the City of Victorville to the Green Tree Inn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug, let me ask you a couple of questions, please.
Oh, I'm still have the public hearing open.
I'm sorry.
Okay, if you have any other members that want to speak at this time, this is a continuing public hearing.
Good evening. My name is Ashka Patel, and I represent some of the hotels in the Victorville area. As a hotel manager, I would like to say that there are also online travel agencies that owe the city a lot of money, such as Expedia, Travelocity, for they collect the taxes from the guest, but they are not redeeming those taxes to the city. They don't have a business license, but when you go online and you book a room with these online travel agencies, they're third party, which we call OTAs, they're not paying the city of Victorville any taxes, and I wanted to make the city aware of this. If you go and book a room for $100, they collect $7 tax, of course, and that tax they put into their own pocket because they're out-of-state companies, and that tax is not going to our city. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. And that, I was going to bring that up at the end of the meeting because that has been brought to my attention that the travel agencies outside are booking, they are collecting the fee, we're not collecting it. It's a matter I'll refer to the attorney, but we're still in an open public hearing. Any other individuals that want to address this matter? Seeing none and having no cards, I'm going to close the public hearing. Mr. Kennedy, you had a question?
Doug, how do we pay the audit firm that did this work?
Thank you for asking that, actually. One of the speakers mentioned that the audit firm was on a contingency. That is incorrect. There was a fee for service. There is no contingency at all. It didn't matter how much or how little he found. He got paid a single dollar amount.
If I will just say this, if I were the CPA for one of these hotels and you came and did a 12-month audit and projected that to 36 months, I'd fight you tooth and nail. That is not good audit methodology if that's what they did. If we have hotel owners standing here saying they're looking at numbers and they have no idea where those numbers came from, my experience with tax auditors over 40 years is when they reach their conclusions, they lay it out. If there are disagreements about the tax base, They have the opportunity to discuss that. When the audit is concluded, nobody stands up and says, I don't know where those numbers came from. So I am concerned about this, and I am concerned that the methodology may be something we want to look at. I would like to delay any action on this until we get a pretty comprehensive report on exactly how they got to what they got to.
If you'd like, I would ask Adele Mosier to get up and explain the exact audit procedures. She's got a brief presentation that she can give. I will let you know that I've seen most of the letters. I have copies of most of the letters that went to the hotel owners that explained and gave detailed spreadsheets as to how these figures were calculated. I know that they've been given an opportunity to meet with the auditor and with city staff on this issue. And so to say that they don't know where the numbers came from, I would have to disagree with. They may disagree with the final number, but I would find it hard to believe that they simply don't know where the number came from, because I think that information has been provided. Adele, could you explain what the procedures were?
Yes, and I want to make a little clarification. We hired the consultant to come out.
This is Adele Mosier.
Adele, can you get closer to the microphone?
We hired the consultant that came out and did a audit for 21 hotels that are within the city of Victorville. 7 of those hotels were correct. Their compliance was absolutely perfect. We had 7 that weren't, that we had problems with, and then we also had 7 that decided to go with an attorney to appeal our process. Chuck Bouquet, our risk manager, is working with those 7, the ones that wanted to appeal. And so we'll probably be bringing those back to you in the future. The 7 that we have before you tonight are the ones who we found, exceptions to. Some of them had not reported. Some of them have not paid. Some of them have reported incorrectly, according to the California Code of the State of California Civil Procedures Code, Section 338. We do have the ability to go back for 3 years and provide that same methodology, in 2 previous years. And so that's where the tax consultant came with the opportunity to go back for those 2 years to use those same methodologies, in the previous 2 years.
They didn't take 1 year and project that same result to 3 years.
They projected the errors that have occurred in that year back to 2010 and 2011. Because the same methodology for reporting had been used in 2010 and 2011. Therefore, the thought process that those errors had occurred in those years because of the same methodology had been used in providing those tax numbers had been used in those same unreported.
I will tell you, I think that's a pretty acceptable audit strategy to achieve a positive conclusion, but it's a real difficult audit strategy to support to achieve a negative conclusion that somebody didn't do something. I think the appeals may have some merit. I don't know. I'm just talking theory now. But go ahead. I mean, if you're obviously satisfied with this result.
That's correct.
And you believe the hotel owners were given all the information they needed to respond
and they did have the opportunity to come in and appeal that, the decision that had been made, and they did not come in and appeal that decision.
I have a question. All those individuals that are under appeal are not listed, obviously, because it's an unsettled matter. Is that correct?
The ones who hired an attorney, those are not included here. But the ones who we are taking to lien, those had the opportunity to appeal.
They have the opportunity and did not?
They had the opportunity and did not.
Is the appeal period too late?
I think the appeal period, I'm not sure.
I would say the appeal period, though, is running through this public hearing, otherwise.
That's what I would think. Okay. But they had the opportunity to appeal?
That's correct.
Because I noticed in part of the staff report, as of this date, the city has had no response from the hotels, and the balances shown in Exhibit A remain unpaid. And therefore, they had a chance to appeal and apparently did not?
Yes. These letters, most of these letters went out about May 16th.
You're saying none of these 7 have responded to your office?
when we sent the letters out saying that there was going to be a public hearing and that this would be on the public hearing, we gave them the opportunity to come in and appeal that, and we did not have any response from any of these hotels.
Other questions of the council?
The other thing I think the council should be aware of too is these are transient occupancy taxes, and as such, they're actually paid for by the guests of the hotels, not the hotels themselves. So this is a situation where the guests have paid the monies, and the monies haven't been passed through to the city.
Did all 21?
Excuse me, just Madam Clerk, did I close the public hearing? Okay, I just want to make sure, and it's, yeah, your questions.
Did all 21 hotels open their books?
No, 14 did.
Okay, so what happened to the other ones?
The other ones hired the attorney that we're working through the process, and
Okay.
we will eventually,
So you will eventually look in their books. So we're
That is
handling
correct.
everybody fairly the same way?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, when you say that the reporting was off, are you saying that they're just like deliberately not telling us how much they made? Or is there like an error in their software, or how do you know?
We'd have to go back through, exactly how that was calculated. Some of them were underreported according to the results that we received from our consultant. Some of them had not paid some of the quarters, and so, there was a difference in
So they
each-
would
some
not
of them.
only owe us, but they would probably owe state and federal, or?
The transient occupancy, according, from my understanding, just comes to the city.
We don't have any obligation to report to the state that we found errors?
No.
No. Not the only way to underreport, because it's a simple form. You just get the taxable amount, and here's the tax rate, and you just multiply it. It's what, 10%?
It's 7%, which is
7%.
very, very low.
And that's a simple calculation. So the only way to underreport is to not report all the revenue. Underpay means you reported it correctly, you just didn't pay it.
Councilmember Kennedy, it's my understanding, talking with Adele earlier today, that some of these hotels, I don't know which ones, we're reporting based on net revenues rather than gross revenues.
Net. What do you mean net? What do you mean net?
They were sharing their profit with us rather than paying the total tax.
I think my only, not only concern, I have been told before that if you book hotel rooms, that I frequently have with an agent if I'm going through several states, it's there, it's paid. I've paid in advance. I get a receipt when I leave, but I don't know if there's sales tax, who they paid it to, if the hotel collected it, or the municipality where the hotel was located. I'm curious about that. I've never thought about it before, but
I think if you ask for a receipt, then it is itemized on there, but I am not sure on that.
Well, when was the last time we did this?
Adele, do you know? I've
In
been here
my-
for 11 years,
With
and
the city, in the past 12 years, we have not done this.
So are we going to do this every year now?
We intend to do it more regularly. Depending on how this goes, it may or may not be an annual audit.
But we do want to do it much more frequently.
Yeah, certainly much more frequently. It hasn't exactly been a pain-free process for city staff either.
How much did the consultant cost?
Dale, do you know what that?
Was around 19,000. 23.
I just want to make sure we don't pay him a commission. 'Cause
No,
that's
no.
terrible public policy.
No, not at all.
In the end, we might end up paying him more because of the fact of what happened with, these 7 that we hired the attorney, but it will be not because of, any kind of contingency.
Well, I find it a little bit difficult to understand that it took all these years for someone to finally realize that this money is not being collected.
Most of the hotels do provide some, and so far we have just believed what has been reported. We have brought, to the city, the finance department has expressed a desire to do this for several years.
Were they all paying or just some?
Some of them were paying, most of them were paying, yes, but whether they were paying correctly, and from the audit results, some of them weren't paying correctly, and so that's,
Or if nobody was checking
right,
them.
exactly. So it's a process that we should have done long ago, but under the direction of our new city manager, we were able to do that.
Good.
Further comments or questions by the council members?
I think we should do this more often, and then also revise the TOT so that we could recoup the fees that we're spending to audit, and then also interest and.
Yeah, we're certainly interested in revising the TOT ordinance. It is old, and some of the things we've learned through this process, there are some areas that could be clearer and better defined.
Well, based on the responses to my concerns, I don't think there's any basis for not going forward with this. Unfortunately, the self-assessment system, most people respect it. Some people don't, and that's why we have audit processes.
Comments from the council? Any more questions? I have one comment. I know that sometimes forms are difficult to follow and fill out. I fill out forms myself. I also sign under penalty of perjury. I see no reason to hold this up. I see every reason to continue, but I also see a reason that if individuals can come in and prove and show beyond any reasonable doubt that this is an error, that we are open to correcting it and you bringing it back to the council. I think we have to be fair. Fair is to collect the monies that we should have collected, but fair is also to recognize if we have made an error. I don't think we have. I see no reason to believe it, but I would like I'd like to have that open just in case. I have no reason to believe that that's so or not so. I just want to be fair about it.
And Mr. Mayor, that opportunity has been given to every hotel in the audit.
Okay. All right. Chair's open for motion. Just before we vote, I had closed the public hearing, but because you are an owner and because of the amount, I will allow you to speak briefly on this.
To just point out how flawed the system is. I did not own the hotel for 2010. I am assessed. I have opposed it. I have appealed it. I have brought it to the attention of the city that the attorney that I have hired, his father is dying, and he has appealed it. I don't know which council member he's spoken with, but we have appealed it, and I hope that the records show that I am appealing, and Green Tree Inn is part of the appeal. I'm not part of the other 7 hotels, so I don't know if they're showing. I just wanted to clarify we have appealed. I have objected in the last week's meeting that we had with Mr. Chuck Bouquet. I asked to speak to the gentleman who assessed my hotel for the past 3 years, and I was told because I'm not part of the 7 people who have appealed, I cannot speak to him. Then I called Mr. Chuck Bouquet, explained I'm denied to speak to Mr. Thompson. Then I got a phone call back 20 minutes later, oh, if you like to come and speak to him, you can come. So again, the way my hotel is assessed, I have signed for the past 2 years myself every quarter. I have delivered the check myself to the city office, and I'm assessed for 2010, and I didn't even own the hotel for the year 2010.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any response from the council?
Does that mean his is being appealed?
One's going to keep coming back
Well, no, yeah, we're going to cut this off because we just have to. We've held this open. We've had. What bothers me about the whole process is that as of this date, the city's had no response for hotel balance. You're going to come and argue before the council. Actually, we didn't commit the audits. We rely on the audit. We rely on the staff. We have the numbers here. We're trying to be fair. I'm urging the council to proceed. If you can absolutely show proof and come to the finance department and show that proof, they're going to be talking to the city attorney. We do not want to assess people for monies that they do not owe us. The question that he didn't own the hotel in 2010, we don't know. You can check that. Obviously, if the auditor went in and found a figure that's owed and went back 2 years when he was not responsible, nor the owner, nor signed the papers, he has a legitimate argument. But we're not going to fight that battle here tonight. It serves no purpose. Sorry. Question. Short question.
Sure. When we are talking about putting the liens on them, we just want to know which hotels are you going to put liens right now?
That's going to be a determination that's made after the final hearing from the attorneys and after this hearing here, this city council. This is a public hearing for unpaid transient occupancy, and we are going to adopt a resolution that confirms the assessments. And as my understanding, this will result in a lien. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, what you are doing right now, if you adopt the resolution as written, is you are confirming the assessments, you are also overruling all of the appeals, and therefore providing for the assessment of the levy of the liens.
But this does not affect those 7 property owners that are under appeal. Is that correct?
That is correct. It just deals with the 7.
So
that
the
are
ones
listed on
they have
ordinance.
attorney, they are not being affected with this lien right now?
Not at this time. We will probably end up with another
Okay.
hearing to make a determination.
Because we are still talking to Mr. Thompson, the auditor, and he has promised us that he's going to check it again and lower the amounts for us. Because we showed him where he was mistaken.
All right. This is something that you're going to have to deal with.
Not what we're hearing tonight.
Doug, this is
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, the hotels subject to this proposed lien at this time are listed as Exhibit A. They are the Ambassador Hotel and Conference Center, Hawthorne Suites, Green Tree Inn and Extended Stay Suites, Sunset Inns of America, Comfort Suites, Hotel Extended Suites, and Hilton Garden Inn and Conference Center.
Thank you.
Okay.
That answers my question. Thanks.
Okay. Chair's open for motion.
There's a motion and a second. The motion is by Councilmember Garcia with a second by Councilmember Valles.
And that vote is an understanding with what is contained with the council's directives to the staff.
Motion carries unanimously.
Item 15. Anyone want a break? No. Consent all the way through for A, B, C, D, E, F, G? Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
Correct. Chair's open for a motion if there's no discussion.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron, second by Councilmember Valles. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 16 was handled with 7:10. Agenda item number 17, we have a request to continue this item, is that correct? To June 8, whoa.
It was item number 19 where there is a request to continue.
Okay, this is a continued item then? Item number 17?
Yes, this has
okay.
been on a previous agenda.
Previous agenda?
Yes.
Resolution number 13-011, and excerpt section 7 from the amended and restated joint powers exercises agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we table this and advise the BVWRA Executive Director that we will not vote on it until we get an opinion letter from the Attorney General.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Yep.
Well, I think Attorney General's enough.
It's just an AG opinion, I think, is all you need.
Okay.
AG.
Well, isn't it either or, AG or FPPC?
The FPPC, it wouldn't hurt to get both. I think the AG is going to be determinative. This is sort of an incompatible office issue, which was
Okay.
really an AG issue.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I make a motion.
We have a motion and a second, Madam Clerk.
I have a thank you. Motion by Councilmember Valles, second by Councilmember Kennedy.
I'm abstaining on this just because I believe I did at the previous one. And although we're tabling it, I'm
Okay.
just going to abstain.
Motion carries with an abstention by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron.
Agenda item number 18, amendment number 6 to the service provider agreement. Staff has provided the information. If there's no questions, chair is open for motion.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 19 was one that's requested to be continued. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
Continued to what date?
July 2nd.
July 2nd. Agenda item number 20, written communications, resolution number 13-035. Does this go along with the budget?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, for I think the second time in the last 10 years. This table of organization is effectively the personnel side of the budget. It lists any changes in the budget, as well as listing all of the benefits that are paid to all city employees, full-time city employees. You will notice in there 15 positions added. I would like to comment that many of those are positions that are likely recruited with incumbents internal being selected. Certainly it's open to the public, and many of those positions won't be filled or backfilled. Additionally, most of those positions are not general fund positions. Many are at the airport or other restricted funds. The only true benefits change that is listed in here is with the city's adoption or change to Aetna Healthcare from HealthNet, as well as moving to Aetna Dental from Assurant Dental. The combination of coverage, Aetna afforded us a $100,000 premium holiday because there is some inconvenience for the city employees, and because that is sort of one-time new revenues. What we are proposing and what is in the budget that was approved, or at least assumed in the budget that was approved, will be changing the fringe amount available for city employees from $626 per month to $650 per month. That is going to come entirely from that $100,000 that's paid by Aetna, not by the city. And it sort of rounds out and gets a little bit of an increase to a fringe benefit amount that hasn't changed in approximately 10 years.
Question from council members?
I just look forward to the compensation study so we can address the future employee benefits for medical retirement.
As do I.
Okay, and then also, there's been so many changes over the last few years. I'd really like to see an org chart.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can understand, because you just told me something about HR and I didn't even know. So I'd like to be able to see that.
Any further comments?
Good job for Bill Webb in his new position, right?
He likes org charts.
Need a motion?
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Councilmember Valles. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 21 was handled with A1, A2, and A3. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then A8,
A8.
separate?
Yes, that is a separate item.
Separate item. A8, approval of fiscal year 12-13 budget for NSP, Neighborhood Stabilization Program. No questions? Chair is open for a motion.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McEachron, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
A9, I have removed. To what? Oh, this has an amendment to remove Apple Valley from that.
As a party to the agreement.
Part of the agreement. Otherwise, it's ready for approval for the council.
Yes, it is.
Chair's open for motion.
Motion by Councilmember Valles, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 22. Discussion of possible actions regarding items for the upcoming city council. Before we do that, I do have a question. I noticed in reviewing, and I don't know where, I wrote a note to myself, that for some reason the city council went over budget.
Yes, that is true. In
Why?
fact, Mayor Pro Tem McEachran mentioned that to me. You'll find that on, I don't recall the exact page number, but the city council budget actuals actually show it over by about $20,000. Ryan called me, and I actually exchanged a few texts on it, but I looked into it, and the reason for that actually is when Councilman Rothschild went off the council with 20-plus years of service, he opted out of the ongoing medical retirement health benefit. All employees, including council members, should they opt out, are afforded the opportunity to have a one-time payment rather than having ongoing monthly charges. So he opted out of the ongoing monthly, which afforded him a one-time payment, which is something that was not budgeted for.
Can I see that resolution where it gives him that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can provide it tomorrow.
Well, the
It's available
here
to
has an opt-out provision?
It's available to all employees upon retirement, depending on years of service. You can opt out of that medical retirement benefit amount. It's a monthly amount that's paid, depending on years of service. If you opt out, there is a one-time cash payment that was adopted, I don't know when, to be honest, but we'll get you a copy of it.
Interesting.
So he got $20,000.
Somewhere close to that amount. I don't know exactly what it was, but the budget is technically over by that amount as a result. He got that instead of receiving, I don't know how much it is, $400 or $500 a month for the rest of his life.
My age, which he'll live another 40 years.
Doesn't he have his retirement from the school district?
He does have his retirement, as far as I understand, from the school district, yes. I don't know what his medical retirement is.
Well, that's the reason that he wasn't getting benefits from the city, right?
Yes.
Because he had benefits
That's
from...
my understanding, yes.
Okay, discussion of possible action items. I will start on my left. No items, no items. No items, no items. Item 23.
I have something for the agenda.
Give it to him over here.
Thought I'd get away with that. Okay. Items for future council agendas. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. I would like to recognize Deputy Ramirez and give him a commendation for rescuing the baby.
Okay.
Very good. On the next council.
Based on the story I read, I suspect Deputy Ramirez will spend a lot of time walking up and down stages in the next 12 months. So.
You know, Doug, you're required to present it to everybody when Angela asks for it. Why don't we do a staff report with an org chart so we can have a chance to talk about it?
Be happy to.
That's good.
I like
good
the
idea.
idea.
Good idea.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Next item, then, item 23, presentation of reports by staff and council members. We have no staff member presentations. Council members.
What? I have a brief presentation, Mr. Mayor.
You've been presenting all afternoon.
Start with Mr. Kennedy. No items. Ms. Fias, no items. I have no items.
I have no items.
Since we have no item, do you have an item? Well, okay. Then since we have no items, do you have any items?
I do,
Mr.
actually. I was going to mention Deputy Ramirez. I'm glad Councilmember Vias brought that up. However, what you may or may not know is that the Victorville Explorer Post, which the Marine was a former member of, I think it was this past weekend, went to a competition against 35 teams. The San Bernardino department was well represented with 7 other departments. However, of those 35 teams, the Victorville and San Bernardino Sheriff's Department took first place at the competition, and they credit that, at least in some part, to doing training exercises at City Hall. It was a sort of an urban situation that they had, and we allowed them to use City Hall on off hours to train, and that helped them win first place. So congratulations to the Sheriff's Explorers.
Congratulations. And I will apologize to Mr. Robinson. The reason I was so rude and didn't want a presentation, I thought he was going to make a presentation on the slow pitch tournament in Atlanta last weekend. But that's an embarrassing story that'll wait until another time.
Amen to that.
With no further items, this meeting's adjourned.